Our first full night of college football for 2025, and I think it was worth watching. Solid football, no great, just ridiculous games, off the charts games, but that Cincinnati-Nebraska game turned out to be a thrilling one at the end, certainly with the Bearcats facing 80,000 strong for the Huskers in a home game for Cincinnati. Almost pulled it out, but the Hartzog interception holds on the win for Nebraska as he holds on to the football in the end zone as Brendan Sorsby, the Cincinnati quarterback, went for the gusto and bypassed the field goal going for the win. And Nebraska holds on to win a one-score game. How about that? Maybe 2025 is different. Company at 1-0, a bevy of close calls for the Big Ten in this one. And we will run down all the scores, and we'll get to your calls in just a second. Let's go to the scoreboard real quick and run down the scores, and then we will roll through your calls. Let's get everyone up to date. The much-anticipated score coming out of San Diego. San Diego State, the Aztecs lead Stony Brook 28-0. The aforementioned Nebraska win at Arrowhead against Cincinnati 20-17. South Florida defeats a top 25 team for the first time since 2016 in defeating Boise State 34-7. I have no idea what happened to Boise State in the second half of this game because although they trailed by a field goal at half, they were the far better team in the first half. I did not see the second half, but Boise State should have had a substantial lead in the first half. They obviously got blown out after that. Rutgers hangs on to defeat Ohio at home 34-31. We've got Bowling Green over Lafayette. If you saw Urban Meyer on the sideline with Joey Galloway celebrating the Falcons win 26-7. Of course, they're gearing up for the big noon show at Ohio Stadium on Saturday. East Carolina and NC State, they've been playing close games the last few years. And NC State had a fourth down stand on defense. And C.J. Bailey gets the win at quarterback for NC State, defeating East Carolina 24-17. Jacksonville State and UCF, just up the road from me, UCF, after a lightning delay for a long time, wins over Jacksonville State 17-10. There you see Delaware in its first season in the FBS defeats Delaware State 35-17. Louisiana Monroe with a win against St. Francis 29-0. Wyoming came all the way to Akron, Ohio to Infocision, the famed Infocision Stadium, defeat the Zips in front of no one 10-0. Mizzou over Central Arkansas, big debut out of former Penn State quarterback Bo Pribula, 61-6. Elon gave Duke a tussle in the first half. Blue Devils won it 45-17. Oklahoma State, I predict them to be an awful football team. They've got Oregon next week. They defeat UT Martin 27-7. Minnesota over Buffalo in a hard-fought game. It was a 13-10 game midway through the fourth quarter, 23-10 for PJ Fleck and company. Houston defeats Stephen F. Austin 27-0. There were more games tonight than I thought. UAB over Alabama State 52-42, and Wisconsin shuts out Miami of Ohio 17-0. Keep it locked in here. The Voice of College Football will do postgame on Friday night as well. And now we're going to take your calls. And keep in mind that we've got the structure in play. We would love to get your super chat so we can go extra time tonight. The infamous Corey Brada on the line to start us out tonight. Corey, what's going on?
I got a few things to say. All right.
There you are, Corey.
You got me?
I got you.
All right. I got a few things to say here. I'll start with this.
Yes.
I feel for Satterfield. I feel for Sorsby. Great play by Nebraska DB. All right. And I'm not going to pretend like I watched every game tonight, but it appears on paper that the big winner tonight was South Florida. If I was making my top 25, that actually makes sense. If I was making that tonight, it would feature South Florida in my top 5. And I'll say this, what a disgrace. And I'm not going to hold back here. What a disgrace it is on the part of Cincinnati's administration to even agree to even agree to play this game tonight. What a disgrace. And you and I both know, we talked about it on the Iowa show, talked about it on the Big Ten show. I'm wrong at times, but I hit the nail on the head tonight. It was within the first 5 minutes of the game, and Quint Kesnick reporting from the crowd about, oh, this is Nebraska red. Like, we're so shocked. I'm like, morons, okay? You don't schedule the game. You don't quantify it as a home game. And then you schedule it as a home game, Mark. And, oh, we're going to wear red. It's going to make us feel better because the whole crowd's wearing red. Well, that really worked. By the way, you have one end zone that says Nebraska in it. What universe are we living in? One end zone said Nebraska. What is going on? Can someone explain that to me? What is going on?
Well,
Someone explain it.
Yeah, well, the pro Nebraska feel and vibe of the stadium was palpable through the TV screen. So there was a definite home field advantage for Nebraska. There's no question about that. Whether that turned the tide and was the difference in the game, that could be argued all night. We don't take away wins from teams just because they won home games, obviously. But, man, it was difficult for Cincinnati at times to run its offense.
Well, but tell that you haven't answered the question. Why is Nebraska in one of the end zones? So I'm going to tell you this. Iowa should put up Albany in one of their end zones tomorrow in Kinnick. Would that be a good idea, Mark?
This is what my guess is, Corey. So I don't know the ins and outs of why this all took place, but as it was stated during the game, this was initially supposed to be played at Burt Stadium in Cincinnati. So it went from a true Cincinnati home game to possibly them reneging and backpedaling and figuring, okay, maybe we can make some more money if we move the game to Indianapolis. So it's still going to be much closer for Cincinnati, but still that really compromises the home field advantage. But they can sell more tickets in the NFL stadium in Indianapolis. Why it got moved from there, I don't know, but it goes to Kansas City. It's obviously a short drive for Nebraska. It's right down the road, and we saw the result of that. And then they kind of morphed it into this, going from trying to pretend that it was the Cincinnati home game to this kind of neutral. I don't even think the announcers quite knew, because at times I heard them say, well, this is technically a Cincinnati home game. And then a few other times they called it a neutral game. Yes. So I don't know, a neutral site game.
So yeah, whatever was behind that, stupidity, I think. That's my opinion. Unless everybody got this wrong and this was actually a true road game for Cincinnati. And it may come back. I mean, I think you and I both agree, when you look at the schedule, this is a game that had playoff implications all over it. It really did. Because this is a Nebraska team with a very favorable Big Ten schedule. All right, this is considered a road game. Now, how the playoff committee weighs this, if they're 10-2, we'll see. I think, as I told you the other day, with a weak schedule, they 10-2, I don't think should automatically get you in. All right. No, we got to wait and see what happens the rest of the way. But I thought Sorsby played really well. What I'm disappointed in, what you let off with, well, he tried to go for the gusto. There was no reason for it. They really weren't having issues moving the ball, with the exception being a missed pass interference call earlier in the drive. They didn't use all four downs once. So I just don't know why. I mean, his legs, I don't know that there was a time in the last couple of drives where Sorsby didn't go for positive yardage on the ground himself. Yeah, it's just frustrating the way. I don't blame anybody. He probably just didn't see that DB over the top, and I also think the receiver shares some blame there, because you got to go up and you got to go get the ball, and he didn't fight for the ball. It was a great play by a Nebraska DB. But then the other aspect I want to touch on, and like some of these people in the chat, I recognize your names. I love you all. Like Mike, big Nebraska fan. I recognize you, so you can rip on Iowa, me being an Iowa guy all you want. But let me just say this. Great atmosphere there at Arrowhead. But there is something to be said. Congratulations to Nebraska. But Mark, there's something to be said for when you have this type of an environment for a game against Cincinnati, all right, who's been the basement dweller of the Big 12. When you have that type of an environment for a game like this, it is an indication of where you are as a program. Okay. That's all I'll say. Like, you can say it's because Nebraska fans travel and they sell out every game, yada, yada, yada. But I mean, you would have thought that this team won the Super Bowl. I swear, I was expecting Dylan Raiola to say, I'm going to Disney World. I swear I expected it at the end of the game. So I'm happy for them, but let's not get ahead of our horses. This is a home game for Nebraska. I thought Cincinnati got the short end of some 50-50 calls. All right. The very short end of some 50-50 calls. Also, Cincinnati covered the spread, as you and I both know. So, yeah, playoff implications. But I did think at the end of this game, I thought, we just watched two average teams. That's it.
Oh, absolutely.
We didn't watch two good teams, two crap. We watched two average football teams.
Yeah. And
it's still a game. It was a game. I believe it's a game with playoff implications because I think there's a chance Nebraska wins 10 games. I'm not saying it's a good chance. Maybe it's 5%, maybe it's 10%, but it's a game with playoff implications because their schedule is so weak.
And now Nebraska fans obviously will be rooting for Cincinnati to have a better than expected season in the Big 12.
Yeah. Yeah. And I don't think they'll do that.
I don't think so either.
I like Sorsby. He seems like a bit of a gunslinger, a bit of a risk taker. He's got good. I mean, how long has he been there? I haven't watched much Bearcat football.
So Brendan Sorsby was the starting quarterback for Cincinnati last year, and he was a part-time starter at Indiana before that.
Okay, that's why I recognize the name. Okay, yeah. So, it'll be interesting to see where they finish. But if I'm a Nebraska fan, hey, happy you get the win, right? You happy you get the win, and it is against a Power 4 opponent, but it's not a great Power 4 opponent. It was a de facto home game. The crowd was all Nebraska. That's not because Nebraska fans travel better than Cincinnati. It's because the game was substantially closer for Nebraska than it was Cincinnati. So yeah, I was not all that. Were you impressed with Dylan Raiola tonight? I think it was okay.
First of all, both things can be true. It was an easy road trip for Nebraska fans to take, much more so than Cincinnati fans. But Nebraska fans do travel better than Cincinnati fans.
Well, sure, of course. But I'm just saying that yeah, I mean, it would have been the equivalent of Iowa State playing Baylor in Kansas City. I mean, and calling that a Baylor home game. I don't know. Mileage is probably similar mileage, honestly. What's the distance between Kansas City and Cincinnati, Mark? Did we look this up the other day?
Okay, I'm going to take a shot at this. I'm usually pretty good at this, but that's a tough one for me because I've never traveled that or come anywhere close. I would guess, what is Lincoln to Kansas City? You take that guess, and I'll take the other guess.
I think we did this the other day. Isn't Lincoln to Kansas City like...
We did not. You must have done something else.
I think it's like 150 miles.
150 miles, that's it? I'm going to say Cincinnati to Kansas City's probably 560.
580. That's a good guess.
Is that what it is?
580.
Okay, I've yet to look this up.
Omaha, KC is 184.
Okay, there we go.
We were both. I was going to say we were both, pretty good place there. So
better than my football predictions, even though I'm 5-1 against the spread this year.
You're 5-1 against the spread so far?
Yes.
I see that up on the screen now. Okay.
4-1 today, 1-0 last weekend.
That darn team down the road from you in Tampa.
Yeah, they showed up.
They did. So anyways, I won't bore you up here, but I just wanted to rant a little bit because you know how I felt. I mean, this is not me just being upset because I don't really care that Nebraska won, honestly. I mean, I had Cincinnati covering and they did. I'm not a betting man, but I did make my pick there. And the bottom line is I think it's an average. It should look to be an average team. Doesn't mean they can't get better. Doesn't mean Cincinnati can't get better. But yeah, I just think it's funny seeing Nebraska fans I mean, literally celebrating like they just won the Super Bowl in Arrowhead tonight.
They're
That's just
relieved.
amazing.
They're relieved.
Relieved of what?
That would have been a fairly embarrassing loss.
That's not why they're cheering.
Team.
Mark, you and I both know that's not why they're cheering. They honestly believe that they're back. That's the delusion in that fan base. And you and I both know it exists. That is not exist. Yes. That's not a bunch of fans sighing, big sighs of relief. That's a bunch of fans who really believe, holy crap, we did it. We're back, baby. Like that's what that was tonight. I'm just telling you that right now.
Sure.
So anyways, congratulations to Patty Mahomes Jr. and the Big Red, and all the Husker Nation that was over there made the trip. Safe travels back to Omaha, and so I guess we'll see you on Black Friday, right?
If you were a big-time starting quarterback in college football, would you not want to separate yourself from all of that talk about being compared and just modeling your game and everything you do, your hairstyle and everything in the same number and all this to a NFL quarterback? Would you not want to just be your own man with your own identity?
I think that's one, and again, this will be a controversial statement to Nebraska fans because they'll just like, Iowa State fans will defend Iowa State on everything. I think it just shows insecurity. I think someone who's secure in general wants to carve out their own niche, especially college football. You're a 5-star and you're trying to look like, and everybody's, oh, he's not trying to look like him. Okay, yeah, okay. Like seriously, I mean, come on.
He wears his sleeves the same way, and it's just
how much do you think it cost? How much do you think it cost to get Patty Mahomes in the press box tonight? You think that was a coincidence? I mean, obviously you got the Travis Kelce storyline, but no, I think it shows insecurity, and that's why I just don't. I'm not bought into Raiola. Did you think he played exceptionally well tonight, Mark?
No, I thought he was okay. He was fine.
You've been a big fan of Raiola since day one because in general, you think that 5-star quarterbacks are just going to lock on and be top of the conference, outperforming everybody. Yes.
You are making an assumption based on other evaluations I've made. I have been critical of Dylan Raiola.
Let's go look at your quarterback rankings heading into 2024. My guess is you had Raiola in the top 5 in the conference. That is my guess.
I don't know.
I don't know either, but my point is, to me, he's not shown me anything that makes me think he's a top 5 quarterback in this league. And this was, I thought, a big opportunity for him to make a statement nationally. And I don't know what you have his final stats up in front of you, Mark. I haven't looked at the box score once, but it did not feel like he won this game. It felt more like, Nebraska's defense won this game in the end. I mean, it was the Nebraska secondary.
Not at all did he win this game. Okay, I will post them in just a second, but they look pretty good statistically. You got to watch the game. 33 of 42 for 243 through the air. So light yardage for 33 pass completions. 33 of 42, 243 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions.
Yeah, so the Nebraska fans are going to latch onto that low incompletion, high completion percentage. But the fact of the matter is yards per attempt is relevant. And that's an incredibly low yards per attempt.
It is.
So, I mean, again, I'm not saying he looked bad. I never said that. I just thought he looked average. And I can't imagine Nebraska, given who they are, and maybe they got over the hump tonight, and this is just it. Now they know how to play close games. I doubt it. But if they're going to be able to get over that hump long term and make that turn, I would think it starts at quarterback. So I have yet to see Dylan Raiola make big plays to win a football game. So I still think the verdict's out on him. But I will say those are better completion numbers than I expected. But man, 5.8 yard average.
Yeah, you want to be in the 7.5 to 8 range.
And I think even that's modest, Mark. Is that yards? Let's see. Is there
yards per attempt?
That is yards per attempt. Okay. So, yeah, we'll see. Congrats to them. And then who do they get next week?
I don't know.
St. Charles Tech or something like that.
Yeah, somebody light.
Okay. All right.
Yeah,
well, Iowa gets St. Charles Tech this weekend. So
this was their big non-conference game.
Yeah, their big one. Okay. All right. Mark, I'll let you go. I see you got the real MVP in here.
We do.
And he's going to tell you who the real MVP of tonight's game was. So I'll let him do that.
All right, Corey. We will see you after the Iowa game, of course. Corey Brada from the Hawkeye of the Storm, simulcasted on the Voice of College Football. But go to from the Hawkeye of the Storm following the Iowa-Albany game on Saturday night. I did post the dollar amounts for the continuation of the show. Not tonight. We'll continue our marathon. We'll make it on through to hand this off to Matt Zemek in a couple hours. So no concerns there. But we do appreciate your contributions. I'm not going to turn down your contributions, by the way. So Super Chat contributions, also Venmo, PayPal, and Cash App are highly suggested. And there we've got Nebraska winning. They only scored 20 points in this game against Cincinnati. We'll see how the Bearcats defense plays against other teams. All right, let's keep it rolling here at the Voice of College Football. We get to real MVP on the line.
Hey, Mark, how you doing this evening?
Doing well. I enjoyed the football tonight.
Yeah, I can't complain when we got football on. So, Mark, I guess I'll answer Corey's question. Obviously, the MVP of tonight's game, Mark, is Travis Kelce. He's already got the catch of the season. Actually, catch of the decade. I mean, can you believe what he did engaging Taylor Swift? I mean, he just increased his net worth by $1 billion by just marrying somebody. That's catch of the year.
So my response, I tweeted something out. And really, if we're going to take this, let me be serious for just a second. I hope that they have a long and glorious marriage together. I hope they never part. I hope they are happy.
Obviously.
I hope all of those things. I hope the best. I want the best. I want people to get married. And when they do make that decision, to make it last for a lifetime and to be happy. That aside, yeah, Taylor Swift does nothing for me from a look standpoint, number one. And number two, I guess, yeah, the fortune is one thing, certainly the fortune, but I think he could have probably, with his NFL pension, gotten by
maybe
for the next 20 or 30 years. He might have been okay. But yeah, if you really want to be a jet setter, you know, you're talking billions and billions with her. And I guess if you need a catchy teeny bop breakup song written on command, then she's your girl.
Right. My favorite part of the Nebraska-Cincinnati game is when they highlighted Taylor Swift's engagement ring and then circled it and were talking about how it was cut. That was my favorite part of the Nebraska-Cincinnati game.
I missed that part.
Well, God bless you, Mark. You got mercy from God on that one.
I did not see a lot of the first half. I was recording our betting segments with Steve Merrill. So I locked in on the second half and I saw them obviously go to the press box a number of times for that riveting scene. And I thought, you know, I have not been watching the NFL during this Taylor Swift relationship with Travis Kelce, and now it's invaded college football.
Yeah, I know. Isn't it just great? I mean, it's just what everybody wants at the beginning of their college football season. It reminds me of when Aaron Judge was going for that 62-second home run in the AL, and they would do every single at-bat for like 3 weeks straight. You remember that?
Well, I don't remember that specifically, but I know how that programming decision, I've lived that at ESPN as you know, for 19 years.
Yeah.
So you didn't enjoy that?
No, I prefer watching the football games, and then the gossip people can talk about the gossip and let the football people talk about football. That's just my personal opinion.
the thing when ESPN's making those kind of decisions, they're thinking it's 2003 when they're making those kind of programming decisions. If you want to watch the baseball game, you'll watch the baseball game. You have 18 different avenues probably to do so. Number two, if you care about Aaron Judge specifically, you can watch the football game. And we have these things called phones. We got laptops. We got all sorts of options to get on the internet and track Aaron Judge's at bats. And watch them. So yeah, that's a very archaic way of broadcasting sports and approaching audiences today, especially since that's no longer the home run record anyway.
Right. Well, it was the AL record and still is the AL record.
I guess it was.
But
yeah.
I want to ask you about some of these games. Wisconsin, Mark, their program, I didn't realize it was in this bad of shape. They had their second lowest attendance since 1992 for a home opener. The other one was COVID. Hardly anybody showed up to the game. The game was horrible. Their offense is Iowa level atrocious.
Yeah.
It's 4th and 3. It was 3-0. Third quarter, 4th and 3. They go for it. Quarterback throws a flutter ball that's picked off by a Miami of Ohio defender. And it was bad, Mark. It was bad. They just couldn't move the ball at all, especially inside the 20s. They're going to go probably 4-8 this season, and their schedule plays a factor in it, but the fact they're a lousy football team also plays a large factor. I think the Luke Fickell experiment is coming close to a close, and it's shocking how disastrous it's gone.
Well, if you've listened to me, every time I've been approached about Wisconsin football during this off season, regardless, again, removing the schedule portion of it, just looking at the roster and the acquisition or lack thereof of talent, this is not a good football team. It's not a good football team, but it's shocking to go up against a MAC team at home and have a field goal on the board in the second half. I did not watch a lot of the game. I watched, so I was leaning Boise State and South Florida. Then I moved into the Minnesota game. And then once Nebraska and Cincinnati kicked, that was the game that I wanted to see more than anything. And Minnesota had its hands full, so I was more or less watching that. Wisconsin caught some of that in the fourth quarter, saw them score the touchdown, saw them get what was basically a pick six. So the offense did not score that second touchdown. They just drove it in from the 1 yard line. And then I was just holding on for dear life because I took Miami and 18 points. But yeah, it was a struggle. It was a struggle.
Yeah, they're bad. They're just horrific. Another team that was surprising how badly they performed was Minnesota. I wasn't expecting their lines of scrimmage not to do nearly that well against Buffalo of all teams. Like Buffalo's defense is either pretty good for the group of five, or Minnesota's offense is pretty bad. Like, I was expecting more dynamic passing from Minnesota's new quarterback. It just looks more of the same old, tired, average Big Ten quarterback play where they're going to play every game 17-14, 21-17, and it's just going to be a 6-6, 7-5 season for them is what it's looking like. Now, it's one game, and it could change, but it was pretty bad.
Well, I would say that, first of all, if Minnesota does go 6-6, 7-5, well, maybe that's a rung lower than what they typically churn out. A lot of 8-4s and 7-5s. So this is probably not a different Minnesota team than the one we've seen for 7 years under PJ Fleck for the most part. Number one. Number two, if you check out PJ Fleck's track record against the MAC, and I actually totaled this, he's 5-1. He had that embarrassing loss to Bowling Green. Most of them have not been dominant wins. So this is nothing new for Minnesota football. This quarterback that they got, I thought he played pretty well. They put him in a lot of bad spots, and I'm not saying like the coaching staff or the play calling, more or less they got behind the sticks. He had to deliver a lot of 3rd and 15s, a lot of 3rd and 12s, 3rd and 10s, and did when he was in that situation.
Yeah, their running game wasn't helpful at all. Like, no. Minnesota's front seven was, Buffalo's front seven was dominant.
And you would expect Minnesota's run game to be dominant, and it was not. No,
right,
it was a plodding win. And I think Minnesota's, it does not in any way change my opinion of Minnesota football. and this quarterback should get better. It was his
Oh,
first
yeah.
big-time game.
I agree. It was a slow start. It's something to keep an eye on, but you got to get more data. I'll give you a game situation now, Mark. East Carolina, North Carolina State. Revenge game for North Carolina State. 31 for East Carolina. They run the ball. They don't get it. It's 4th and 1 and about the 11-yard line, okay? 1 minute, 20 seconds left in the game. East Carolina's got all 3 timeouts, okay? The clock is going. What would you do?
Well, they've got 3 timeouts. They're going to call a timeout so that the game's on the line.
When would you call the timeout?
Okay, you just said there's about 1:20 on the clock?
Correct.
Well, I'm going to use as much time as possible, obviously.
Well, obviously, you're not the head coach of East Carolina because he waited till literally the last second on the play clock and then called a timeout to click all the way down to 42 seconds left before calling the timeout. And then he just ran like a bubble screen or something like that. So the wide receiver caught the ball and he didn't even get close to the first down. And the game ended right there. So.
Okay, I'll have to check that out.
Yeah, nominate that for worst decision of the week. It's right up there, right behind Frank Wright's decision of you have 3 timeouts with 20 seconds and you don't use them until there's 3 seconds to go. I'd put that one in the East Carolina head coach too right now, Mark, as horrendous coaching decisions. Final game I want to talk about, Jack State versus UCF. Sorry, UCF, your season's over. I don't care. They won. You were down 10-3 in the 4th quarter to a Conference USA team. You're terrible. Goodbye.
Or maybe they'll compete in the Big 12. Who knows?
If they compete or win the Big 12, that just strengthens everyone's argument that the Big 12 is a garbage can conference.
Now,
Conference USA is by far the worst conference out of every conference in Division I football.
And to tack on to that, I did not see one play of this game, but I can only imagine how horrific it was that Oklahoma State only beat Tennessee Martin 27-7. And for a long time, this was a close game as well.
Yeah, they seem to be going in the negative direction. They seem to be going closer to the Group of 5 status than the Power 4 status. Another game that it was kind of a blowout, but not really. Houston beat Stephen F. Austin 27-0. You think if they were a good team like Missouri, for example, they would have beaten them by 40 to 50 points. Only 27-0 at home. Not really that. It tells me a lot about Houston as well.
Yeah, that's a dismal point total for sure.
Well, Mark, I'm looking forward to the Auburn-Baylor game tomorrow. That's probably, in terms of these early games before the ranked games, the most important unranked game we've got. Baylor, in my opinion, set up favorably to win the Big 12. Their schedule's crap. Even by Big 12 standards, they play a lot of the former G5 teams. So if Auburn wins, it's a massive statement for the SEC. So anyway, Mark, I'll get seeing you.
Thanks for being here, Derail. Let me get the scores posted again here, and then we got Matt Zemek on the line. We'll bring him in as well. I did not expect Matt to be ready to roll here this soon, and we'll take your calls together here. Let me... My share screen function is kind of wacky tonight. I don't know why. It's not doing what it typically does. Very odd. All right, let's get the scores up here, and then we'll go from there. And why are we suddenly okay? We want all the scores. Why this always defaults to the top 25 is very annoying. All right, there we go. Let's bring in the great Matt Zemek. Matt, how you doing tonight?
I'm doing well, and I cover USC here at the Voice of College Football, and obviously you don't want to overreact to week 1, but USC should be looking at what happened tonight across the Big Ten and thinking, we have a chance. So I'm not puffing up my chest saying USC is going to be just trampling over its Oregon, non-Michigan Big Ten opponents. I'm just going to say USC has a chance. has a chance to be good against this caliber of Big Ten opposition. Like the Nebraska road game is going to be one of the trickier road games for USC. Again, it is just week 1, but I think if you're a Nebraska fan, you're thinking, I would have liked to have seen more evolution, more development in Dylan Raiola over the offseason, all that time in the lab with Coach Holgo. Just not as advanced, I think, as most Nebraska fans would expect. I think if you're a Nebraska fan, you are relieved about the win, and week 1 wins against Power 4 opposition. You take it, you smile and say thank you, but I think any Nebraska fan deep down would say, you know what, this is not the standard. This is not it. If we don't make dramatic improvements, talking from a Nebraska perspective, it's going to be a pretty ordinary season. And Nebraska did break the bowl drought last season. Okay, good for you. Like, you don't go to Nebraska to go 7-5. That would not be a good season. And I certainly get the whiff of 7-5 from this performance tonight against Cincinnati. Technically a neutral site game, but that red in Arrowhead was Husker red. It was essentially a home game, and you couldn't really drill a Cincinnati team that couldn't throw the ball, And you know that they have a running quarterback. You know that they're going to run the ball, and really never really solved the quarterback draw or the quarterback counter. Lots of things to be concerned about if you're a Nebraska fan.
Absolutely. It was not a dominant performance. It was not a clean performance. And when I say dominant, I was not expecting Nebraska to win 42-7. And I in fact, you guys don't get my picks because they're on the premium tier for the Patreon members and for the folks here on YouTube. But just full disclosure, I picked Cincinnati to win the game outright. So I obviously took the 6.5 points, and I saw tonight, Matt, when you talk about dismal Big Ten showings, this is what I foresaw. I took Buffalo in this 18 points. I took Miami of Ohio in the 18 points. I took Ohio against Rutgers in the 16 points. I made all those my predictions. Give me those points against those marginal Big Ten teams. Give me the Cincinnati and 6.5 points against Nebraska, and they all covered fairly easily. And, Minnesota, though, this seems to be pretty much their MO. If you look back on their non-conference efforts against MAC opponents, they get the win. They usually win by 10 points, and that's pretty much what they do. The Wisconsin effort, now, I would have been alarmed in previous Wisconsin seasons when Wisconsin was Wisconsin, but I think this is just a bad football team.
Well, the news at Wisconsin is Edwards, the starting quarterback, getting injured. That's a big deal. Transferred from Maryland. You're thinking if you're Luke Fickell, you're getting a quarterback upgrade from what you previously had, and now an injury strike. So, lots of reasons to be concerned. I didn't get to watch that game too closely. I was focused on Nebraska-Cincy, but the Wisconsin tweets I follow on social media, they're saying, man, we have some offensive linemen that are well below the Badger standard. So, if diehard Wisconsin fans are grumbling about offensive line play, whoo boy, that is not a good indicator for Luke Fickell, who is squarely on the hot seat. And hey, Mark, might as well talk about it right now since you and I have not talked too much. I do my USC show here at the Voice of College Football now with Ethan. It's no longer you being kind of the traffic cop in the middle. But in terms of the Wisconsin job, if Luke Fickell stumbles this season, you would have to think, right, that Pat Fitzgerald, tanned, rested, and ready to go to Madison as the next coach of the Badgers. I mean, that would be such a natural stylistic fit, right? Like Wisconsin has been linebacker U, tough, rugged, physical, Big Ten football. Pat Fitzgerald would fit that program like a glove. So Luke Fickell's seat, if it gets warmer, you know that Fitz is going to be mentioned. Now, whether Wisconsin fans think Fitz is the best choice for the program, separate issue, but that's going to be a big talking point if Luke Fickell can't get this thing fixed. And since he has his quarterback hurt, odds of him not getting it fixed just rose a little bit tonight.
Now, that's a good call by you. I had not thought of that. The guy that came to mind the other day as I was reviewing possibilities for the group of five in terms of playoff representation was Toledo, who, of course, has a shot against Kentucky in this opener, and Jason Candle and the job that he's done in Toledo. And if he would ever take that leap, and he's usually in those discussions, I would think that he might be in the running as well.
Yeah.
Well, Matt, do you want to take some calls here?
Sure. And I just want to say, I'm not presuming to say what Wisconsin fans want. I'm just saying he's gonna be a talking point if Luke Fickell gets in trouble.
Ryan, we appreciate the super chat contribution. Yes, Danny O'Neil better be ready to be QB1. So Danny O'Neil was the starting quarterback at San Diego State, and Billy Edwards, though, easily won the job, was going to be the starting quarterback. I got to say that I tuned into the Wisconsin game late and just saw the last several drives in the fourth quarter and saw Danny O'Neil there, and I thought, are they just rotating in quarterback? So I didn't know anything about the Billy Edwards injury. I just saw O'Neil on the field, and I didn't know that they were just wanting to get him reps or what the deal was. So this is pretty significant, apparently, with Billy Edwards.
He went to the locker room. I don't know anything beyond that, but it was definitely an injury-related move to have O'Neil in there.
All right, Matt, we got a Notre Dame fan, Rob, checking in. Rob, what's going on tonight?
Hey, Mark, how you doing? Hey, Matt.
Doing well.
Yeah, so first of all, Matt, I completely agree with your sentiment. This was, for me, kind of a disappointing night of football. Not that the games weren't entertaining. There was some good matchups, I guess, if you want to look at Cincinnati and Nebraska duking it out there. But I was really hoping for that kind of middle of the pack Big Ten team kind of grouping, maybe slightly lower to the end of the middle of the pack. I was hoping they would kind of step up tonight and show out for the Big Ten. I actually thought going into the season that the Big Ten was probably primed to have, maybe their best showing in recent years. Not that, they won the last two championships, yes, but I was kind of hoping that the strength of the conference from top to bottom would look a little bit better. And look, it is week one. I mean, we don't really know exactly what to make of this, but to me, it just didn't look very good for much of the Big Ten there. And I think USC and Michigan, and I've said, these are my two teams that I think are going to, I don't want to say shock anyone because they're blue bloods and they're, they have talent on their rosters and everything. But I think people are underestimating both Michigan and USC this year. And the way that the other Big Ten teams perform tonight, that just strengthens my resolve on that thought.
My thought is that I totally agree with your assessment of the performance tonight, but I just think that part of this is DNA. It's just Big Ten DNA. I made the comment to Matt about Minnesota. If you look at PJ Fleck, who is basically an 8-5 coach, that's what he's done at Minnesota. If you put the composite together, he's an 8-5 coach. And against MAC opponents, I looked at it. He's 5-1, and he wins these games by a touchdown to 10 points. That's what he's done. And then he goes into Big Ten play, and they acquit themselves fairly well. They're not in contention. They went 5-4 against the Big Ten last year, and that's the typical effort of Minnesota football. They're not scaring anyone. They're not contending. They're competitive. They'll go to a bowl game. They always win the bowl game. He's like 7-0 in bowl games, and they don't seem to be on any trajectory. If there's a program in America that's not on a trajectory one way or the other, upward or downward, I would say it's Minnesota football. They are PJ Fleck. And I don't know if this speaks to PJ Fleck's excellence or it speaks to his inability that he can't do any better, or it speaks to him holding together a program that is probably generally winning at its peak since not at its complete peak. It's not like he's exceeded Glenn Mason by a ton, but basically they're winning at a rate that they haven't won at consistently since the early 1960s. That's what Minnesota is. Now, Wisconsin's just a bad football team. They're just not a good football team. They don't have many good football players. I don't know what's happened to the roster. I think we could blame Paul Chryst to a certain extent. But if this was not the transfer portal era, we would give Luke Fickell more time to fix the roster. But that's what the transfer portal is for. And he's made very marginal pickups. And Wisconsin's just not they're a bottom, I think, 4 or 5 team in the Big Ten. And then the other example would be, who else played tonight? This Nebraska game against Cincinnati, in which they pretty much played a home field game against Cincinnati. And the Big 12 so topsy-turvy, who knows where Cincinnati's going to land, but I think most of us expect them to be a bottom 5-6 team in a 16-team Big 12. So Nebraska winning by a field goal is, I agree with your evaluation. I just think this is pretty typical of mid to lower Big Ten teams in non-conference play against inferior opponents.
I think you make some very good points. My response is that, in the era of the super conference, the 16, 17, 18 team conference, I think we still have to get intellectually adjusted to the reality that in a large conference, you can have a schedule path that takes you away from the heavyweights. I mean, a good example would be Indiana last season, right? Had to play Ohio State, but avoided Penn State, avoided Oregon. And so in these larger conferences, you're not going to be able to play everybody. So if you get that favorable schedule path, you can do some damage, even if you might not be, in terms of raw quality, just as good as the top 2-3 teams in the conference. So, relative to your point about Michigan and USC being undersold, I think the schedule has something to do with that. Like USC has Oregon and Michigan, but avoids Ohio State and Penn State. So I'm not saying USC is going to take advantage, but it does have the kind of path that could lead to a decent record. So really, that you make some salient points, and I think we all need to just remember that the larger the conference, it's somewhat paradoxical, right? More teams in a conference, the more teams you can avoid, not play, avoid. Like the SEC, and this is why the SEC won so many national championships. Like, they don't have Alabama and Georgia playing every year. They do a home and home once every several years, but they space it out. They keep those matchups, limited. If they do meet, it's often in the SEC championship game. Like, that is not by accident. That is definitely by design. And you're seeing something similar in the Big Ten. They're not going to have all the top teams all play each other every year. They're going to spread out those matchups. Like USC hasn't yet played Ohio State, so that's going to wait a little bit. And they're getting rid of the East and West division. So Ohio State, Michigan, Penn State, that trio, they're not all knocking heads every season. Again, that's by design, not by accident. So looking at the schedule in the era of the supersized conference, that's a really big point that you raise.
Yeah, and I guess my biggest disappointment is just for Wisconsin. Like, I hate what's happened to that program, and I can't believe that Luke Fickell, of all people, is kind of the guy that who's ultimately to blame. But he's certainly a part of it, and I think part of that was just trying to change the identity of that program from what they were. Maybe it was worth a shot, maybe, but it obviously, in hindsight, it backfired. But another big disappointment was Boise. I did not. I mean, that was a miserable. Like, I was watching that game. I wanted to stop watching it. It's one of the most dismal performances I've seen in football in quite some time. But I'll let someone else talk about the Boise game. I got one more thing for you, Matt. Since I don't talk to you very often, I saw today in the news that USC has put forward kind of an offer for Notre Dame. For a multi-year deal now, where I believe it's going to be what they're asking from Notre Dame is to have the games be at the beginning of the year, from what I understand. So have you heard anything about that? I haven't heard anything from Notre Dame's side yet, but I would imagine like Pete Pavakwa, Notre Dame's athletic director, and Marcus Freeman both said that they want to play USC anytime, anywhere. So to me, it seems like this is a no-brainer that this should finally be put to bed and just, put behind us.
Yeah, so I cover USC, and hey, as someone who covers USC, I obviously want to see USC do well. So it's not as though like I want to paint USC in a negative light, but USC's been kind of chicken about this, trying to kind of wiggle its way into a different arrangement. So I'm on record as saying I don't like it. Like, let's preserve what small breadcrumbs of tradition we still have in college football. USC goes to South Bend in the middle of October, and Notre Dame goes out to Los Angeles on Thanksgiving weekend. That's the way it should be. I would be sad if that got upended. But, and you alluded to this, Marcus Freeman saying, hey, we'll play USC anywhere, anytime. Like, if you're going to say something like that and USC saying, okay, we'd like to play in September, is Notre Dame now going to back out of that? I mean, just in terms of like a political chess dynamic, USC's kind of painted Notre Dame into a corner here. Like, if Notre Dame says, well, actually, we don't want to play just anywhere, anytime. We want to play it the way it's normally done. So the college football purist and traditionalist in me wants it to stay the same, which would be the pro Notre Dame position. But if Notre Dame's saying anytime, anywhere, doesn't matter, then doesn't Notre Dame have to agree? I'm thinking the way you're thinking it on this.
Yeah, I just want this to be done. I want Notre Dame, and I don't care what it takes. Like, just get this game done, get this multi-year deal done, because this is like one of those matchups that you can't, like, losing Michigan Notre Dame sucked as it is, but losing USC Notre Dame would just be catastrophic. And especially now, I think part of the reason that maybe USC put this offer forward finally is because of the way the committee said, oh, hey, we're going to start grading teams as strength of schedule a little more, like we're going to reward that more. So USC is maybe thinking, well, shoot, maybe we do want these tough games out of conference to boost our schedule and make ourselves look better. And hey, props to them for that. So,
and let me just jump in. The SEC going to 9 games, I think, was a critical domino in all of this. With the SEC gaining parity with the Big Ten, they're both going to be playing 9 conference games. That took away one of the Big Ten's, one of USC's and the Big Ten's grievances. So, like, I think, we're going to see the 16-team playoff. Now the SEC is playing 9 league games. That's like, we got to expand the playoffs to accommodate a 9-3 team playing a 9-game SEC schedule. I think that pretty much solidified the 16-team playoff going forward. Obviously, it's not official, but I would be shocked if we don't have a 16-team playoff for 2026, and that makes it easier for USC to go ahead with the Notre Dame series. Absolutely.
Yeah, that's great. So I'm hoping that we get this thing wrapped up. And it does make Curt Cignetti and Indiana look a little foolish after they canceled one of their tougher games with Virginia, but who knows? I don't even remember who they filled that slot in with. But anyways, it's nice to finally get to talk to you, Matt. But Mark, always a pleasure talking to you. I'll let you guys get to the next caller.
Thanks for the call.
Thank you, Rob. Appreciate it. And before we get to that next call, we will dive into a couple super chats coming in from Minnesota Dave. So we'll take Minnesota Dave's call here in just a second. If you picked MAC teams that beat the spread against Big Ten teams today, you would have a good chunk of money. I did just that. And you are right. So it's a clean sweep for the MAC in terms of the point spread against the Big Ten at 2-0. 3-0. Yeah, Wisconsin, Rutgers, and Minnesota. So 3 for the MAC against the spread, of course. So the Minnesota quarterback, Derek Lindsey, needs to check off on his main targets. There was a lot of guys wide open they should have looked at. So Drake Lindsey's a young quarterback, won the starting job, was expected to win the starting job, and kind of trailed Max Brosmer in from New Hampshire from the FCS. So we'll see if he develops. What little I saw of that game, or at least of Drake Lindsey throwing the football, I thought he looked pretty decent. He didn't look like he was going to set the world on fire, but they put him in a lot of bad spots where he had to convert 3rd and 10, 3rd and 12, and he did so. Delivered some nice throws down the seam on 3rd and long several times. All right, Minnesota Dave, we'll bring you in here so you can follow up on your comments there. Minnesota Dave, what's going on?
Hey, how's it going? Just a typical like PJ versus the Mac type game.
There you go. That's what I'm saying.
It's exactly what I thought. I didn't think that Minnesota was going to like destroy Buffalo. I felt that Minnesota was going to like get the points when they can. Young quarterback, and like I said, the only thing I noticed is like he was trying to look at his main targets way too much, and he was trying to throw at them way too much. And there were some times you looked at other guys and they're like they're like a step and a half, like open, and like you should look at those guys just a little bit, just check down just a little bit.
And Minnesota Dave, before we let you continue with you,
Hello?
PJ may be a happy guy in regards to my predictions because he could have tacked on a possible touchdown there at the end. They were inside the 15-yard line, and he had a good 40-some seconds left. They could have tacked on a TD, but he held it right there. I said, good job, PJ. Thank you very much. Keep it right there. So he could have made it look a little better with some window dressing.
Oh, yeah, he could have. I mean, Tyler, this is what I expected, that Buffalo was going to get tired and that Minnesota's offensive line was going to push them off the ball and then run the ball. They only threw the ball like once in that one drive that they needed to do. And the rest of the time, he just like got, 3 or 4 yards rushing the ball and then, ending the game that way. Because they had it for a very long time in that last drive, even though they didn't score.
Yeah, so Drake Lindsay, 19 of 35, 290 yards, 2 touchdowns, and a pick. I did not see him. Oh, was the pick the ball to the sideline that the Buffalo defender ran almost all the way for a pick six? Yeah.
Yeah, it deflected off a Minnesota player whose feet were sticking up in the air. It was a fluke pick.
Okay.
Yes, exactly. If it wasn't for the fluke pick, this game would have been a lot more. We would have beaten the spread technically.
I gotcha. All right, Minnesota Dave. Anything for Matt? Anything for me? Anything else here, sir?
Oh, nothing else. I didn't really get to watch the other games. I heard about the Nebraska was really close. I didn't get to see that, but
It was a good ball game.
Well, you're a Minnesota fan, so you have to be happy that Wisconsin did not look good.
Yeah, I'm happy that Wisconsin didn't look good. I'm as a Gopher fan, you don't want to see anybody injured, but it's kind of like, wow, I hope their quarterback.
Yeah.
I hope their quarterback's out for how long now?
They didn't look good independent of the injury.
Yeah. Oh gosh. I mean, defensive wise, they held them, but I don't know if Miami's offense, or Miami of Ohio, I should say, offense is that great. So, I mean, that might be good enough to there might be Miami, Ohio might be like like an Iowa where they have a great defense, but not a great offense.
They went to the MAC championship game last year, and they picked up Daquan Finn at quarterback, but obviously couldn't score.
And you don't score until you score.
So there's that. There's that Wisconsin, regardless of who you're playing, you pitch a shutout. That's something.
Yeah. I really didn't totally pay. Like I said, I was at the game. I didn't pay attention except for the scores. And Boise, oh my gosh, I didn't think they would get their butts handed to them the way they did against Southern Florida. That makes the whole G5 thing now more wide open, don't you think?
Absolutely, it does. And they're really going to have to make up for that performance. Now, I just watched the first half, and Boise State was down by a field goal at half, and they should have been up. They looked like the far superior team. South Florida couldn't do anything on offense. and Boise State was shooting itself in the foot. Otherwise, they should have had maybe 21 points on the board. So I have no idea what happened in the second half, except Boise State could not move the football. This is the first time since 2005 that a Boise State team was held scoreless in the second, third, and fourth quarters. And I know South Florida broke open this game with a fake punt where they threw a long pass downfield when it was still a 10-7 game. So that kind of broke Boise State's back because that led to a 10-point lead.
Important detail to mention on that. South Florida put in its backup quarterback for that fake punt, and Spencer Danielson and that Boise State staff, they got caught flat-footed. Like, they could have just called a timeout and you nip that in the bud, but they didn't do it, and they clearly were not ready for it. So Spencer Danielson, a very rough beginning to the post-Ashton Genty era, and we have to say, like, UNLV looked terrible in its first game. So I joked on social media, the Mountain West seems to be wanting to dissolve a little bit early before any official deadlines.
Right now, I'll be honest with you, I think with the American Conference the way it is, that Tulane and Navy might be the front runners right now.
I agree.
I mean, if you want to say who are the two best of the Power 5 schools, those are the two right now.
It's not even Labor Day, but if you're going to ask me that question right now, I would agree.
Yep.
Yeah.
And Tulane's got an interesting date against Northwestern, and they're only a 6-point favorite at home. So I would expect that to be a challenge.
Oh, yeah, it will be. But Northwestern, you don't really know what you're going to get. I mean, especially when I just feel that they have been going downhill a little bit, but I think next year they're really going to try to make a big jump to try to get some players for them to, with that new stadium coming up, and try to be competitive.
You would think so.
Yeah, I kind of hope for that program to be kind of like that, because I've always feel like that they've always been an interesting storyline every time they have like an 8-5 or like a 9-4 season. So.
Yeah, it's Matt had mentioned Pat Fitzgerald possibly being a great fit for Wisconsin. Of course, I ran the numbers at one point. Was not a time during Pat Fitzgerald's 17-year run at Northwestern where his team was ranked in the preseason top 25. Never given consideration in the preseason top 25. Finished in the postseason top 25 5 times. So Pat Fitzgerald overachieved many times and, of course, won the division twice late in his tenure. Had some awful seasons late in his tenure as well. So it's just one of those programs where you got to cycle up, and Matt talks about the schedule, and you have to have kind of that good portal year combined with a good senior, junior class combined with a scheduling break or two, put that all together, and you come out with those 9-4 seasons.
Yeah, it's going to be very interesting this year. Especially that like I said, that G5 race is just going to be a good race. And you guys were even mentioning the Toledo coach, and we talked about this even earlier, like before your first time you were trying to do this 24 hours thing. I mentioned the whole entire
You did.
We got the Central Michigan coach. Now I forgot his name, and I even.
I'm going to butcher it if I try to pronounce it, because I don't remember how to pronounce it either. I hadn't heard
the Lombardy.
The Mormon. Yeah. Don't even try. I don't know. You were the one that brought him up.
Yeah, and I guess I just did it because my parents went to Central Michigan, and I didn't know that he was the winningest coach in the MAC for a while until the guy from Ohio beat him.
Frank Solich.
Yes. Yeah. So, and I would say if Wisconsin is going to go after anybody, I really do think that they should go after the Toledo guy. If Fickle does not fit.
Herb Duramedy.
Yep.
Yeah, I had forgotten that name. He was there from 1978 to 1993.
That's a long time for a MAC coach, too.
I noticed tonight in watching the Wisconsin game that Chuck Martin, who's been at Miami of Ohio now for 10, 11, 12 years, is the all-time leader in wins at Miami of Ohio, and his record is sub 500.
Whoa. Yeah, man. Well, then
And they've
again,
kept him around.
Yeah, most MAC, let's face it, most MAC coaches leave after 4 or 5 years. You know, how long
Yeah,
did
if they're any good.
Woody coach at Miami of Ohio? How long did Ara
That's a great question.
Parseghian coach
Yeah.
at Miami of Ohio? How long did Bo Schembechler coach at Miami of Ohio? They have a cradle of dang good coaches that ever came out of that school.
Yes, you hit the term right on the head there. Cradle of coaches. All right, Minnesota Dave, anything else for us?
Nothing else. Have a nice night, guys.
Thank you for the super chat, sir. Good to see you.
Thank you.
You're always welcome.
All right, let's keep it rolling here at the Voice of College Football. We got Matt Zemek and myself. You can catch Matt on
Tuesdays now.
Track. We're Tuesday night, 10 Eastern, correct?
Yep, and Sunday post game at 8 Eastern, 5 Pacific during the season.
There we go. And of course, Trojans Wire. So we will drop the link to Trojans Wire in the chat. So we make it easy on you. You don't need to look up Trojans Wire, although it takes about 3 keystrokes. But we'll drop the link in the chat so you can go directly to Trojans Wire. And we got Will ND checking in, preparing for his big game this weekend against Miami.
Of course, I had to prepare, by going on the Miami Voice of College Football call-in show this afternoon.
Nice.
So I enjoyed that.
We have been posting some deep dives on that game. I don't know if you caught.
I gotta check out the one with Trevor. I saw the first one. I gotta watch the second one.
Yeah, I gotta catch the one with Trevor. We had a hour-long conversation matching those two teams up, so it's a good show.
For sure.
And Will, welcome. Also on vocfb.com, we have Notre Dame staff writer Jeffrey Clark and Miami writer Brandon Foster. They're doing a week-long collaboration at our Voice of College Football website. So hope you've been diving into those. But if you haven't, you have plenty of time to catch up. You have time to catch up and read up on, one guy writing from a Notre Dame perspective, one guy writing from a Miami perspective. They're asking each other questions. So vocfb.com.
Yeah, I have a day off work tomorrow, so I'll get on that. But, man, looks like the Joe Thomas days are long gone for the Badgers offensive line, man. That's roughly to start the year. Billy Edwards, who torched my high school, Northern Virginia product, down and out. So hopefully for his sake, he'll get better. But it looked like this.
Well, Wisconsin seems to be going the way of Man United.
Oh, yeah, it's getting grim for them. It's getting grim. But it looks like those Luke Fickell Bearcat teams were more Marcus Freeman running the defense and Mike Denbrock running the offense, and they're in South Bend now. So it looks like that was really what was the edge into those Bearcat success.
Okay, well, CJ Carr, what do you see from Lloyd Carr's grandson on Sunday?
He can make all the throws. It's his decision making I'm a little sketched out by, but I think Denbrock's going to have him more play that game manager role. Just take those check downs. You can throw up some jump balls from Malachi Fields. If Jaden Greathouse makes a move, and gets that defensive back on his heels, get it to him. But you don't have to be a hero. Just don't turn the ball over. Take your check downs. Get it to the open receivers. Hand the ball to Jeremiah Love and Jadarian Price, and let that offensive line do the work. The work.
At what point total for Notre Dame would make you feel comfortable about winning?
I said 27-20 in my prediction, but if we could get into the 30s, I'm feeling very comfortable.
Yeah. Well, definitely in the 30s, but I'm kind of interested. Are you okay with a rock fight, or is Notre Dame going to need to score in the mid to upper 20s at least to get it?
Well, I heard it's going to rain. It's going to be super rainy. That's what I've heard. And that's what Jaden told me, who is part of the Voice of College Football Miami channel. That's what he's been hearing. That's going to be – he's on because he's a student. So they said rain is forecasted on Saturday and Sunday. So,
well, that's just keep good care of the ball, really, and make sure that you don't get a punt blocked or a wild snap.
Mm-hmm.
Well, look at Notre Dame's 2 big wins against the SEC last year. They were almost carbon copies of each other in terms of defense, offensive line, grinding out wins. 23-13 at Texas A&M and 23-10 against Georgia.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, the team they're tough. They can take the rock fight, but obviously I don't want as many rock fights this year. I want more just clean, complete performances, but I'll take what I can get at the first two games. But it looks like Boise State will not be a rock fight. It looks like they're, unfortunately for the Broncos, they're down and out this season.
Whoa. You're probably right. But, Will, you've watched enough college football.
I know. But, man, that was a bad second half.
These teams change every week.
I know, but, yeah.
You're probably
also, you got to remember that Northern Illinois,
yeah,
right?
I know.
Marshall, right?
Yeah, but I mean, what I've heard from the beat is that the players are super focused this off season and during camp. So I'm thinking those days are gone. Of course, Jackson telling me not to throw the baby out with the water, but yeah, feeling pretty. I'm confident. But I'm more confident, but I'm still nervous.
Yeah, I'm not, to shift this to Miami, I'm not sold on Carson Beck. I mean, he could be really good, but he's struggled with interceptions. And I'm not quite buying into the hype, and I think that the Notre Dame defense is going to get at least 1 pick.
Yeah, Christian Gray will get
Carson Beck. And in many ways, I often bring this to big college football games. It's not just the turnovers, but it's the timing and the context of the turnovers, right? You know, if it's a 50-yard arm punt from the middle of the field that pins an offense inside its own 10, that's not really a costly turnover. But a red zone turnover or a turnover in one's own red zone, which is how Notre Dame beat Georgia in the Sugar Bowl, like those turnovers swing games. And, you know, I'd say it's a pretty decent shot that Carson Beck commits 1 significant turnover in this game. And if the weather conditions are nasty, that could be all the Irish need to get a W.
Mm-hmm. But, Mark, I'm definitely going to stick to your picks. I went with my gut, and when I saw that line at the last second drip to 5.5, tick down to 5.5, I took the Huskers to cover that. And I thought they were getting a field goal, and then they got the sack. And
it could have gone either way.
Yeah.
It could have gone either way.
But I'm going with your picks the rest of the weekend.
Well, we're off to a good start.
Yeah, you're off to a good start.
We are off to a good start, and I guess that you're going to like my pick on the Notre Dame-Miami game.
Mm-hmm.
Even though I think, your first 2 check boxes are obviously on the Miami side, home field advantage and veteran quarterback taking on a first-time starter. Those are not usually – that's usually not the beginning of the recipe for a big out-of-conference win to start the season. But I still like the Irish. I just think Notre Dame's just a sturdier football team, a battle-tested football team. I just think they're a more complete team top to bottom.
Mm-hmm. I mean, in Miami, like they're have a new players with a new system. So, I mean, Chris Ash isn't going to totally rock the boat for that. And then Miami,
yeah, you've got the advantage of having a rock solid defense where the baton was just handed off. Mm-hmm. They've got the situation where their defense obviously was a disaster. They bring in all those transfer portal players, especially for the secondary, which is completely retooled. Corey Heatherman comes in and did wonders at Minnesota, but yes, they are implementing a new defensive system. Correct. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I'm feeling pretty good about strength and conditioning. I can't pull the guy's name out that worked with Peyton Manning, but like that showed in College Station that like the A&M guys like were throwing up on the sideline at the end of that game, and Notre Dame guys seemed pretty fresh. So I'm also happy with strength and conditioning going down there as well.
One other thing we have to appreciate, or at least, in my mind, is that Cam Ward rescued Miami multiple times last season, by being a swashbuckler, a riverboat gambler, whatever label you want to call it, making those improvisational plays. That's something Carson Beck doesn't possess it to the same extent. I'm not going to say he doesn't possess it at all, but he doesn't possess it nearly to the same extent that Cam Ward did. You take Cam Ward away from that Miami team, that team is close to 500. So, I think Miami is dealing with a downgrade. And Carson Beck is good, but I don't think he's as good as Cam Ward is. And I see Miami certainly struggling with Notre Dame as a result.
And also, look at who their head coach is, Mario Cristobal. Like, there could be some crazy time thing that he messes up again, or
he won't take a knee.
I don't have a large amount of confidence in Mario Cristobal as a game coach. And you can even take away the most obvious example that Matt just gave, but then also the game at Oregon. But just when you talk about how many times does this happen? Does a superior team, a more talented team, get just completely boat raced as he did against Utah by 4 touchdowns, and then play in the Pac-12 championship game against that same team 3 weeks later, and the same thing happens? This should not happen. I'm not a big fan of Mario Cristobal in regards to his. We'll see about the building of the program, but the game management is not good. And not just the game management, the game preparation. His team was coming down the stretch last year at 9-0, and they lost to an inferior Georgia Tech team. They had a 21-0 lead at Syracuse, blew it with the playoff on the line.
Yeah, just a complete collapse from the Hurricanes there. But what are Matt, what do you think your leads are for tomorrow's game? I think this could be it for Hugh Freeze. If he loses this one and he has those 2 tough road games, I think it could be.
Yeah. Auburn, Baylor, to me, total coin flip, because you have 2 coaches that are in uncomfortable positions. Who knows how each coach, each team is going to respond. That's a total coin flip. So, I would stay away from any significant opinion on that game. Sometimes you just don't have a clue. That's the game where I don't have a clue. The game where I have a strong opinion is Georgia Tech has to beat Colorado. That's a must win for Brent Key, not in terms of hot seat, but in terms of turning the corner and changing the reputation of Georgia Tech. Georgia Tech's reputation, they get up for the really big teams. They can beat Miami. They can give Clemson trouble. They almost beat Georgia between the hedges on Thanksgiving Friday. They get up for the big time teams. Can they win the games they're supposed to win? I mean, we see it all the time across every sport. Teams get up for the big boys, but then they play down to mediocre opposition. That's the challenge for Georgia Tech this season. And Colorado, without Travis Hunter and Shadur Sanders, all that production lost. And Colorado's going to trot out a new quarterback, a transfer from Liberty, 5-star Julian Lewis didn't get the job. That was a big headliner, especially for USC folks. Julian Lewis decommitted from USC, and now he doesn't get QB1 under Coach Prime. But anyway, Colorado certainly has less offensive talent and a lower ceiling than it did last season. So if you're Georgia Tech, you've got to win that game if you want to change your reputation as a program. I do think Georgia Tech wins.
Yeah, the old 1990 national championship game we never had.
That's right.
Although that was a phantom clip. It was a phantom clip.
And 5th down.
Yeah. And
Yes.
But yeah,
Call
the
in the
phantom
book.
clip from the Notre Dame perspective, absolutely.
Yep.
Barry Alvarez stayed, man. Lou could have had like 4 or 5 titles if Barry Alvarez would have not gone to Madison. But it was a good decision for Barry. But
Yeah, it worked out pretty well for Barry.
worked out for Barry, yeah. But
Okay, Will, anything else for us?
no, just fun to talk to probably the 2 most knowledgeable college football minds I know.
Do appreciate that, Will. Thank you for that. Enjoy the game. Hope it works out for you.
All right, thanks, guys.
What
Always
would
great
be
to
your,
talk
what
to you,
would be
Will.
your second game that you would watch?
Oh, I want to see if Brian Kelly can get it done. I mean, it's about time in Baton Rouge for him. So
Yeah.
I'm very curious to see.
All
Also,
right, Will.
Dabo's got to get
Yeah.
back. I mean, this is a huge season for him as well. So for both teams.
Just
Yeah.
quickly, Mark,
Yeah.
I want to ask this to Mark. Is it just me, or has the Texas-Ohio State hype drowned out LSU Clemson, or do you
I don't
see-
care about that game. Both teams are going to be
both
top 4
teams.
seeds in the playoffs. Like, I don't really care. I mean, I don't know.
Well, I would say, Will, I understand that thought. And, you know, considering Ohio State hasn't lost more than 2 games in forever, you would be correct if history holds. But looking at the rest of their schedule, you know, with a young football team going to Illinois, going to Washington, Penn State, Michigan, if they lose this game against Texas, you know, they'll have some adversity. They'll have some hurdles to cross. Clemson, LSU. I am even more curious. I think I've got a better read on how good LSU is. I think LSU is a fringe playoff team. They're going to be in the 8-4 to 10-2 range. And obviously, they're going to play some really close games in the SEC. This may be a barn burner. So if they go 8-4, not going to be shocked because it'll probably include some losses that they could have won. Case in point, 10-2 could be the same exact thing where they could have won or lost some of those games. I'm more curious about Clemson this season because ever since Trevor Lawrence stepped off campus, this has not been the same program as it was 2015 to 2020. They've lost 7 of 10 games against the SEC teams since Lawrence left. And they have been far and away still the best program in the ACC, even though they relinquished some of those conference championship games and conference championships overall. They far and away have the best record in the conference. They still own the conference, but the level of play is obviously, you know, who have they beaten in the last 5 years who's any good outside the conference? Really nobody. So I am fascinated, especially since all this hype seems to be surrounding that they've got all this production back from last year. Well, this production did not produce any good wins. 7-6 Pitt is the best team that they beat in the regular season, and that was not a good 7-6 team. They were poor against the run. Basically, they had a quarterback and 3 receivers who bailed them out of most games. But individually, if you go through their defensive roster, those guys are going to be playing in the NFL. They just collectively were no good last year. So we'll see if Tom Allen has the answers. Yeah, I'm fascinated by that game.
But Mark, just do you think that this game has been in the shadows of Texas-Ohio State, or do you know, from what the calls that you've taken, what you've read, what you've seen, what you've heard, do you think that these games are existing on the same plane in terms of media focus, coverage, like soaking up the media ecosystem?
Well, I think the sheer mass of revenue and brand power for as big as LSU and Clemson are, Ohio State and Texas, you know, there's already going to be, you know, that move in that direction, and people love to see the smaller numbers in front of the 2 names, so they see a 1-2 matchup or a 1-3 depending on your poll, and that automatically gains it. You've got a defending national championship team. You've got Arch Manning as a name. You've got just so many name brand qualities to that game. And then you got to realize that the phone calls that I take and the chat that I take is skewed toward the Big Ten. So that's part of it from my end of things. I wish it wasn't. I would like an extremely balanced show here, but I look in this chat and it's nice to see that it's a little bit more mixed as we get toward football season, but all off season, pick any day and you see an Ohio State Michigan argument in the chat. So yeah.
Anything else, Will?
No, just enjoy hearing you guys talk ball. But thanks for having me on.
Thanks, Will. Enjoy the weekend.
Thanks for calling.
All right, we'll keep it rolling here at the Voice of College Football, and check out the merch. So we just don't run a Notre Dame store. That's just one example. So we've got a long list of teams that our buddy Josh on the Oklahoma channel has done a remarkable job. So let me say this real briefly, that I had given up any hope of putting together a merch store for this season, and Josh came out of nowhere. He threw it together. He did a fabulous job. So we have basically, at this point, we're going to expand the selections, but polos and t-shirts and hats and tumblers and mugs for every team at this point, or at least the main 20 or 25 college football teams at the top. And so please check out vocfb.com. Check out some of the articles that Matt has highlighted a few minutes ago concerning Miami and Notre Dame in particular, but also check out the store. All right, Defiant checking in here to talk some college football with us.
Hello, guys. How's it going?
We're doing well. How are you?
Doing pretty good. This Wisconsin game reminded me of when I was watching Indiana with Tom Allen the last couple of years, how he struggled with Akron. It was bad. It was horrible. I feel bad for Wisconsin fans. And it was funny when Luke Fickell got hired at Wisconsin, and everybody thought it was a decent hire. I will give them credit for that. But just the way this program has been the last couple of years, just shocking to me.
Yeah, I mean, it's an example of a hire that looked great on paper, and sometimes the hire that looks great on paper doesn't work out. I mean, we in any sport, not just college football, there's usually a general consensus on how good a hire was, just in terms of the logic. Did it make sense? Was it the best candidate available? And sometimes you can get a hire that checks all the boxes and it just still doesn't work out. Other times, there are hires that don't make sense, like Jerry Faust, just to provide one example. You follow up Dan Devine and the immense successes that he had, and you throw in a high school coach. Like, that hire never made sense, and of course it crashed and burned. But Luke Fickell is one of those examples where everything about the hire was right. It was logical. It made sense. It was splashy. Because obviously, the industry chatter about Fickell was that the only two jobs he'd leave Cincinnati for would be Ohio State and Notre Dame. So if you have a coach who's, linked to those two jobs in terms of, his desires, his intentions, and then Wisconsin's able to land him, I mean, it was a splashy, sexy hire, and yet it's plainly not working out. And a caller earlier on tonight mentioned the point. He rushed the transition to a different style. And some would say he never should have tried to change styles at all. But if you are going to change styles, you at least need to let that breathe a little bit. You can't just force it instantly. When Paul Johnson stepped down at Georgia Tech, Jeff Collins immediately tried to overhaul everything, instead of allowing players who are recruited to run the triple option. Year one should have just been triple option. Maintain that. And you can spend the off season recruiting players for the style that you want in year two. It's basically the same with Fickell at Wisconsin. You should have allowed it to be old school Wisconsin year one, and then you recruit linemen and you portal and you do all those things to turn over the roster for year two. But Fickell wanted to do it right away. And when coaches try to do that, it almost always fails. Like Mississippi State did that with Zach Arnett after Mike Leach died, on and on and on and on. So that's just the huge mistake Fickell made, and he's still trying to dig himself out of that ditch, and it's not going well.
And just to add to that real quick, I think that if you believe what comes out of Luke Fickell's mouth, and in this case I do, I do believe that he thought that he could go in there and just flip a switch and that they were going to change the offense. And then I think in listening to what was coming out of his mouth as they progressed into spring ball that year, he realized, okay, I don't have the personnel to do this exactly, but so now we're going to kind of backpedal a little bit. We're going to incorporate some of these elements of speed and space and some things we want to do, but we're going to kind of go back to some of the roots of Wisconsin football, and we're going to try to combine these things. I also think, and not to take Luke Fickell off the hook, but I mentioned this a few minutes ago when somebody else brought up the Badgers, is that Paul Chryst's last few recruiting classes were not good, and there were a lot of reports coming out of Wisconsin that he had basically, kicked his feet up on the desk and was just not delivering in recruiting. And then on top of that, I'm conjecturing to a certain extent, but Jim Leonhard obviously took over for a fired Paul Chryst when they were 3-2. He delivered a 9-4 season. He delivered 6 wins in 7 games. And 9-4 at Wisconsin is pretty much what they do, maybe a rung lower. And Jim Leonhard would have fit that Barry Alvarez, Gary Anderson, Brett Bielema, on down the, Paul Chryst when he was winning, been in that line of succession of what Wisconsin delivers. But Luke Fickell became available, or they thought, hey, maybe we can pry him out of his good job out of Cincinnati. And he obviously was coming off a playoff appearance just a year earlier. And they went for the gusto. And probably we're also thinking, is the current state of Wisconsin football and what we deem to be our expectations and our standard, is this going to be enough with Oregon and USC and these West Coast teams coming in this expanded Big Ten? We better go for the hotshot coach, and maybe they overextended.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't know if he stayed in Cincinnati, how he would be faring now in the Big 12. I mean, you've seen what Scott Satterfield has done the last 2 years, struggling in the Big 12. I know he was a decent hire for them, but I'm just like, I don't really know what they say about Wisconsin football. I mean, as an Indiana fan, I'm happy. I'm excited to see Wisconsin now doing that good. But again, it's another team you have to worry about. But I really don't know what to think about Wisconsin right now. I mean, yeah, he's probably in the hot seat at the end of this season. I would be surprised if they don't fire him or figure out something. Because again, only scoring 17 points against a okay, decent MAC team in Miami, Ohio. I've seen Wisconsin win by 44 or 51 against some of these MAC teams in recent years. So, I mean, I know their offense struggled a lot today, but I'm just like, man, it's just kind of sad seeing the state of them now compared to what they were, again, last couple of years.
Absolutely, Defiant. I think we've beaten up Wisconsin enough, unless you've got any other angle on the Badgers or anybody else.
No, I won't continue the Badger talk. This is going to keep going downhill from here. I mean, what else is there really to say besides their performance today and their schedule going forward?
As Bilal is saying here, Jim Leonhard was loyal to Wisconsin, but Wisconsin was not loyal to Leonhard. They made the decision that they believed that they should make, and Matt started out the conversation by saying it looked like a good hire. I got to admit, I got this one wrong. I considered the 2 best coaching hires of that offseason to be Matt Rule and Luke Fickell. And at this point, the Luke Fickell hire looks to be about an 80% certainty or more that it was not a good hire, and the Matt Rule is pretty much a 50-50 proposition right now.
just for some added context on Luke Fickell, let's go back to Thanksgiving weekend of 2021. Imagine a world in which, you remember, USC's athletic director at the time was Mike Bone, and Mike Bone used to be the athletic director where? Cincinnati. So Luke Fickell was certainly mentioned as a possible USC candidate. And, before Lincoln Riley came up as the coach at the last minute, like there were like 3 hours of speculation. That there was a very tiny window between USC might be taking a big swing at Lincoln Riley, Bruce Feldman's tweet that Sunday morning. Very small time window between the rumors and the actual announcement of the hire. But before the Lincoln Riley even entered the picture at USC, if you had told USC fans in late 2021 that Luke Fickell was going to be the new head coach to replace Clay Helton, I think the vast majority would have been very happy. And the fact that he knew Mike Bone, there would have been that word, alignment between the coach and the AD, in terms of the administration. And yet, here we are, Luke Fickell floundering and probably going to be on the hot seat pretty soon. Sports can be strange.
All right, Defiant, anything else for us?
I will say this.
Sure.
Seeing the performance of Nebraska and Minnesota tonight, could the Indiana-Illinois game kind of be that game who decides who is like the upper echelons in terms of the Big Ten?
I absolutely do think that. I think more so from a perception standpoint, we'll see if it actually plays out, because whoever wins that game is obviously going to have to continue to beat some pretty good opponents, because Indiana cannot rely on a 2024 schedule. So I think from a perception standpoint, that is a heck of a Big Ten opener for both teams, because I think there's going to be this mindset by most of us that watch that the winner of that game, okay, you passed the first test, you're still a contender until further notice, but for the loser, they're going to be dismissed. And we know how momentum plays in football seasons. The winner of that game might win the game by 1 point and not be a better football team than the other one, but that might spur them on to bigger and better things and to continue to stay in the Big Ten race. And for the loser, that may send them on a mediocre path. So I think that's a tremendous Big Ten opener.
Yep, absolutely. I mean, like if you think about the Big Ten in the playoff this season, I think most people would say Penn State, Ohio State, almost certain. And then probably you're going to get some Oregon votes, maybe some Michigan votes, and then it could be the winner of that Illinois-Indiana game might get the 4th spot. So it's a monster game, and of course, 2 teams with a lot to prove. I would lean toward Indiana in that matchup, because I think Indiana is actually upgraded at quarterback with Mendoza. I mean, Rourke was really good, but I think Mendoza is actually better. And, if you trust Kurt Signetti, usually when he gets his guy and when he gets, some good material, he usually does a really good job with it. So I think Indiana's upgrade at quarterback with Mendoza, I'm going to lean Indiana there.
All right, Defiant, anything else for us?
No, that was it, guys. Thank you.
Hey,
Thank you.
Thanks for stopping by. Everybody enjoy the football this weekend. We got Michigan Man stopping by. Michigan Man, what's going on?
Hey, what's up, man? I'm going to start with Nebraska, and I got to start with this, man. The Raiola Pat Mahomes thing is starting to really annoy me.
Starting.
Yeah. Oh, I talked about it earlier.
I mean, look, I get idolizing somebody, but when you make when you're trying to not be, just be yourself. Just be yourself, bro. Like they showed the thing during the game. The number is the same. The haircut's the same. He comes in the stadium with the same glasses. His sleeves are the same. His game routine's the same. How he celebrates after the game is the same. How he ties his shoes and eats his. I mean, it's getting ridiculous, and it's just really. I don't think I could watch that team every week and just see this guy not try to be himself. You're not Pat Mahomes, dude. You're Dylan Raiola. I don't know if
My-
you put
My
20,
thought on this, beyond the fact that the media is really enabling this, like the media is just pushing this and pushing this. It's like Gus Johnson with Maserati Marv and all his other inane word plays. Stop
you.
trying to make fetch happen. Just stop shoving all this onto us to try and reprogram our brains. It's really stop. Please just stop. The simple thing is, Dylan Raiola, I don't care what your hairstyle is like. I don't care what number you wear on your jersey. Play elite football. That's it. Play elite football. You're at Nebraska. Fans want excellence. They expect excellence. Just be excellent. Shut out the noise. Shut out the comparisons. Talk less. Perform more. Nebraska minus 6.5 bettors lost this game mostly because Raiola, on that 4th and 2 with Nebraska up 13-3 early second half, driving just past midfield, 4th and 2, receivers immediately open on a short 5-6 yard pass. Raiola was looking down the field for the big hit. 4th and 2, if a receiver comes open, you're throwing to the hot read. And Raiola just doesn't make that very basic play, and you had a complete 180 after that play. Cincinnati drives downfield, gets within 13-10. Yes, Nebraska did push it back up to 10 later on, but it did change the energy of the game. If Raiola converts that 4th and 2, Nebraska might be sitting here with a 17-20-point win, and the conversation surrounding the Huskers is very different from what it is. So, Raiola had 7.5, 8 months in the offseason to work with Dana Holgorsen, who, say what you want about Hogo as a head coach. That's a separate silo. Holgorsen as a quarterback coach, Geno Smith, all the great West Virginia quarterbacks that he was able to crank out, and his other stops in terms of, just generating offense. Hogo knows what he's doing as a quarterback coach. This product was supposed to look a lot better than it actually did. So Dylan Raiola, shut out the noise, shut out the comparisons, shut out the media trying to make fetch happen. Just be excellent. That's it. So being yourself is certainly good advice, but even more to the point, be excellent. Just play at a high level. That's the best way to earn all the praise, the comparisons, and not feel that it's just something that the media is trying to manufacture.
Yeah, so here's the thing, though. I disagree. I don't think it's the media. I think it's Dylan Raiola. He had an interview the other day. I don't know if you guys saw this interview. And he's telling this story. I don't know if he said he was at a supermarket or where he was at. And he just talks about, these kids say, hey, is that Pat Mahomes? And I was like, no, that's not Pat Mahomes. I'm like, bruh. It's the most annoying. It's probably the most annoying thing I've seen in sports. I can't imagine something more annoying. But anyways, back to the game, man. Nebraska's a 7-win team. I mean, that was not. I have a thing I do in the beginning of the seasons where if two great teams are matching up like week 1, that doesn't really tell me much because I don't really know how good they truly are. But if a team matches up against a group of 5 team or a team that's okay or a team that's not supposed to be that good and you struggle against them, that tells me a lot more than if you would have played a like for like Power 5 school week 1, because then I could be like, well, I don't know how good that team really. I don't know how good that team really is. Nebraska should not have struggled nearly as much as they did tonight, and I think that tells me more considering they played a team that they probably should have dominated. Probably should have won by 2 scores, in my opinion, at least.
I totally agree. So there are very few programs and teams that roll out there in week 1. We know who they are, that we can say we're almost certain they're going to be elite this year because they're always elite. There's so much of college football that we're like, then there's that next layer. There's the Penn State Notre Dame layer where we're like, we think they're really good. Are they going to be really, really good? Are they going to be a national championship contender? Or are they just going to be, 9-3 good? And then there's this just mass of teams. And to your point, I would say it this way. We know Cincinnati's not a really, really good football. We know that there's no universe that exists where Cincinnati's going to be, contending for a Big 12 championship. And even if they do, shoot, Colorado contended for a Big 12 championship last year, and then they got smoked in the Alamo Bowl, and they really weren't that good. Shoot, they lost to Nebraska by 3 scores. So, yeah, this entire off season, I've heard all this hype about Nebraska, and every time I hear about it, it's tied to the schedule, that the schedule, to Matt's earlier point, is going to provide for them a path. And it may, when they didn't receive, I don't know if they were ranked, I don't think in the preseason top 25, but I know that they received substantial votes. And I think those people are voting more from the standpoint that they're trying to make a projection to say, we think at the end of the season, Nebraska is going to have the record that's going to cause people to vote for them as a top 25 team. I do not believe that this is one of the top 25 best teams in America. They're going to have to show me a lot more than what they showed me tonight. And what they showed me tonight is basically what I anticipated. I picked them to lose this game, and they very well could have lost this game. So Nebraska pretty much showed me what I expected tonight, which is that they're a marginal football team.
Yeah, no, for sure. And the last thing I want to talk about, and perfect time to the UFC guys on here. When we talk about coaches that are going to be on the hot seat, how is Lincoln Riley not at this point? When did he get there? What year?
Hired in November 21, so 2022 was his first season. So here's the deal with Lincoln Riley. Purely on merit, purely in terms of his job performance at USC, he should be on the hot seat. Okay? Purely on merit, he should be. But in terms of the politics, in terms of the buyout, the economics, everything else that's going on at USC, he's not on the hot seat. He would have to not make a bowl game this season to get fired. If he goes 6-6, he probably still stays. If he goes 7-5, he definitely stays. And the reason is USC has this 2026 recruiting class, top 3 in the country coming in. Chad Bowden, came over from Notre Dame to be general manager. So Lincoln Riley, he isn't shopping for the groceries anymore. Chad Bowden's taking care of that. It's just up to Lincoln Riley to cook now. So he has a smaller range of responsibilities. So USC's also invested a lot of money in new football facilities. There's just been so many expenditures that USC's not going to eat a huge buyout unless Lincoln Riley absolutely craters and USC's 5-7, which, highly unlikely that's going to happen. So on merit, after 2 terrible seasons in 2023 and 2024, yeah, he should be on the hot seat. But with the 2026 recruiting class, the large buyout number, and all the investments USC's made in its administration and football infrastructure, he's going to coach in 2026 unless the bottom completely falls out.
Yeah, I don't think he's going to get. I mean, I think it had to be an absolutely atrocious season for him to get fired this season.
Yeah.
When I see it, I'm saying maybe at the very bare minimum the seat's getting warm. At least it should be, because what was it? For example, what do you think the expectations were by year 4 for Lincoln Riley at USC? What do you think the expectations were at the time when he got hired?
Yeah, expectation was to have USC regularly in the hunt for conference national championships and certainly to make the playoff. And so in year 1, he came very, very, very close and had things ahead of schedule. And then year 2, a second year of Caleb Williams, that was the year USC was supposed to make the playoff. And Lincoln Riley made the fatal mistake of keeping Alex Grinch for a second season. Just imagine. Let's stop for a moment. Imagine if Lincoln Riley had hired Danton Lynn, his superb, young, very bright, very talented defensive coordinator, in 2023, not 1 year later for 2024. USC probably does hit it out of the park and make the playoff in 2023, and we're not having this conversation. Just the decision to not fire Alex Grinch after that Cotton Bowl against Tulane at the end of his first season, that is by far his biggest, most lasting mistake in his tenure at USC coach. And it's He has paid a very, very large price for it, and so have USC fans, I might add.
Yeah, no, for sure. My opinion is this: if they go 6-6 this year, if I was the AD, I'd be like, can we win? Can we even win in this conference with Lincoln Riley? That's what I would start asking myself.
Yeah, I don't think at 6-6, 6-6 would be interesting. It would be awful, but it would be interesting if it happens. I think he probably still stays. But there would certainly be a heated internal discussion about whether Riley should continue to coach the program. There might be talk about just promoting Danton Lynn to head coach and booting Riley if USC goes 6-6. I think 5-7 he's gone. 6-6 there's a really intense debate, but I'd still lean toward him staying. If it's 7-5 or better, he's definitely staying. That's the way to read it in my mind.
Oh, Tim's laughing like that's crazy. What did they go? What was their record last year?
6-6.
Yeah, like it's not even crazy, man.
I have overestimated this team every at least the last 2 years. Like Matt said, man, the guy took over a 4-8 football team that fielded the worst defense that USC had seen arguably in its history. They were just deplorable, and they're 11-1. They're leading Utah by 2 touchdowns in the Pac-12 championship game. Now, of course, they lost that Pac-12 championship game. Caleb Williams got hurt. They blow the Cotton Bowl to Tulane. Matt outlined the offseason decision that faced Lincoln Riley. He held on, and then Caleb Williams was running for his life, and they were not defensively, they were giving up 52 points to Washington. Shoot, if you watched just the Washington game from that 2023 season, oh my word, it was like they were running scout team plays through lanes that were 6 feet wide. They gave up 52 points in that game. It was just atrocious. And yeah, 7-5, 6-6 the last 2 regular seasons.
Yeah, no, for sure. All right, I'm gonna get out here. Last thing I'm gonna say though is I think Ohio State's gonna win this game. I don't know, man. Maybe it's just a feeling, maybe it's not. I just think certain coaches, and maybe Ryan Day's now in this group, I feel like when they have if they get a matchup like this week 1 and it's at home and they achieved a certain level of success, I'm just gonna lean that way.
That every newspaper in the country, specifically the Columbus Dispatch and other newspapers in Ohio, if the Buckeyes win, the banner headline is going to be "Buckeyes are better." Just saying.
Oh, is that? Well, yeah. Is that? What's the reference? Maybe I'm missing it.
Julian
saying.
Oh, okay. I get what you're saying. Yeah.
I'll say it this way, Michigan man, and obviously I'm biased in all of this, but I have been leaning, not heavily Texas, but I've been leaning Texas the entire offseason. But man, I just and this is where my fandom comes into my picks. I have to admit this. I tell you guys when I can be completely objective and when I can't, or at least from my perspective. I just never expect Ohio State to lose football games. So the closer we get to this game, now I'm thinking, they're not going to lose to Texas. And that is not a nuts and bolts breakdown of the game. That's just gut feeling.
Yeah, my gut feeling too, and it's at home. I think they'll have Julian Sayin in positions to succeed, and it's where Ryan Day maybe is the best when it comes to coaching. I think nobody's better than Ryan Day at having his quarterbacks, no matter at what stage they are in their career, being in positions to succeed on the field. So I think they'll put him in advantageous positions to move the offense and put them in a position to win. I think the defense is going to still be good. I think it'll be good enough to keep them in the game. And I just think at the end, I just think they're going to win.
I got 2 major concerns. One is that the running backs that are replacing Judkins and Travion Henderson are good backs. One of them's workman-like back from West Virginia, C.J. Donaldson, who's carved out a couple nice seasons at West Virginia, but he is no game breaker, nothing special. And then the other one is James Peoples, who's got a bright future ahead of him. But man, I think that they are going to take a huge dive at the running back position after those two studs left. And number two, they're going to have a stout defensive line, just waves of really good players at the point of attack strong, but I don't know if they've got the athleticism and the speed or that proven one or two pass rushers. And the worst thing that can happen on the Ohio State side would be to take a nervous Arch Manning and then make him very comfortable because he can stand back there and pat the football. And I don't know if they're going to get the pass rush on him like they may need to. Those are my two major concerns.
Yeah, no, for sure. I do think one thing that could favor Texas is, like you said, I think if they can stifle the run game, and it's yet to be determined. In terms of talent, would you say this is one of the weaker running back rooms in recent memory in terms of just talent?
Oh, as we stand right now for Ohio State, yes.
Yeah, and then I also add to the fact that Julian Sayin, now I know he was technically a dual threat in high school, but he's not a big quarterback. He's not really I don't think he's gonna be much of a factor in the run game at all. And I think they'll be able to focus on the running backs. And that's something that especially with Will Howard, they were able to use. So I think if they're able to stifle that run game and make Julian Sayin beat them with the arm, now he could do it. I think they got the weapons for sure, but I think that is a key for Texas for sure.
Now, let's not mistake Will Howard to be Lamar Jackson. He was a big dude. He was a big guy that could run. Julian Sayin's probably swifter than Will Howard. They just don't want to get him beat up. He's a little guy.
Yeah, I think so. This is my thing with Will Howard, right? And it's something we've had it probably. And now I'm not saying he's Justin Fields is 1,000 times the runner, so that's not what I'm saying.
Yeah.
But when it comes to Will Howard, since Justin Fields, you really had to still account for Will Howard, and especially in short yardage.
Yeah.
Short yardage, Will Howard was just a huge threat, whether he was dropping back to pass or if it was just in a running situation. And that's something I don't think Julian Sayin is really going to be nowhere near the factor that he was in that aspect. And I think they can key in on the running backs more in that situation.
I'm going to throw another check mark on Ohio State's side because even though this may be a trivia question that people wouldn't get, is that it's been since the mid-1990s since Ohio State had a starting tight end that did not earn a paycheck in the NFL. So tight end is not a position you think of at Ohio State as being some outstanding position, but they have just churned out basically tight ends that catch 20 passes, but they're really good blockers, know how to man the position, and they go on to the NFL and they play for 5 or 7 years. But this year, they might have the best tight end room in the country, led by Max Clare, the transfer from Purdue. So, and that they haven't had in recent years. And that's something that Texas is going to have to account for, is kind of a nightmare of a matchup there.
That is curious, and I've been thinking about that. They have so many. Is there a thing, right, where you have too many weapons where it could be an issue? Because I feel like there's so many weapons. You got the 3 wide receivers. Now you got the tight end. There's only one ball, right? So, do you think that could be an issue? Do you think that could become an issue?
I would say that I remember that being brought up in recent years when they had, scads of NFL receivers, but it never turned out to be an issue.
I want to bring something up. I want to bring something up in the chat. A very knowledgeable football fan and analyst named Tim Prangley has mentioned that he would have more confidence about Ohio State if Chip Kelly was calling plays. So this is a big storyline, right? Brian Hartline stepping into the cauldron. He doesn't get a warm-up game. Brian Hartline goes right into his tenure as Ohio State offensive coordinator against Texas.
Yeah.
So how is Brian Hartline going to call this game? How's he going to measure up? And I don't even know, but that's a big question. It's a variable, and how Brian Hartline does has a large effect on the outcome of this game.
Yeah, my view with that is, though, I don't really put that as a factor because this is just my belief when it comes to Ryan Day. I think if Ryan Day has any inkling or anything happens in the game where he feels like he needs to start putting his fingers in the offense and the play calling, he will do it. We've seen him do it plenty of times. I think he will do it. So that's not too much of a concern for me. I think maybe even privately, because I don't think we know this. I think maybe they've already planned to where, hey, you're calling the plays, but I'm gonna be right there in your ear, and I'm gonna be still, kind of maestroing everything. So that's not too much of a concern for me in that aspect. And just a proven track record. See, I'm gonna get going, but I got Ohio State winning the game. I could even see them winning by maybe 2 scores. Yeah. So all right.
Thanks, man. Appreciate you being here. Matt, if you want me to hang on, I certainly will. But if you want to take us home, go right ahead.
Up to you.
Yeah, I'll step off and certainly go on for as long or as little as you would like. It is completely up to you. So I appreciate you taking us home in our typical opening weekend marathon.
All right, Mark, thanks for all your work. And remember, you can catch Mark's show at the Voice of College Football Monday through Saturday, 10 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Pacific, correct?
Absolutely. And so I will be back on Friday night after, let's see, we got Baylor Auburn and we got Georgia Tech and Colorado. And I think both of those games kick off around 9 Eastern. So right around midnight, we'll be back after those 2 big ball games. And that should be quite interesting taking those 2 in. So we will be back with all of you taking your calls on Friday night after the 2 games. Matt, appreciate you for all that you do. And you guys have a great rest of the show.
Thank you, Mark. All right, we continue here at the Voice of College Football, and we have a call from our friend Jackson Johnson, who's a co-host of the Alabama Crimson Tide show here at the VOCFB. Jackson, how you doing?
Oh, doing pretty good, Matt. Just getting some things rocking and rolling. Although Cincinnati was close, but no cigar tonight. I'm kind of feeling like, and I'm not saying we're going to see it now, but I think it's the beginning of the end of Satterfield if they have a really bad season. And if Wisconsin is having more moments like they did tonight, I think we're going to start having conversation of Luke Fickell returning to Cincinnati. That's coming real soon. It's not happening now, but it's going to happen eventually.
No, I mean, we've talked to her tonight. You might have seen Mark and myself discuss it, that Luke Fickell's seat's probably going to get hot, really hot at some point this season. Badger fans were grumbling about the offensive performance tonight. So Pat Fitzgerald to Wisconsin, Luke Fickell to Cincinnati, or some dominoes in the coaching carousel. You can already see them like that. That would be a very realistic scenario, to be sure. All right, Jackson. So you cover Alabama. What's your sense of the Tide? How is the Tide turning heading into this big opener against Florida State and Mike Norvell?
Well, we're not having Jam Miller on Saturday, but that's no problem there. We've got Richard Young. We've got Dre Washington. We've got Hill on the backfield helping out Ty Simpson. Our receiving core is going to be amazing. It's going to be a thriller against that Florida State defense with Ryan Williams, Isaiah Horton, hearing the Tide calling for his name. You're going to have Jeremy Bernard, and we've got the X factor, Brody Dalton at tight end, coming from Troy. I cannot wait to see what he can bring for 2025. And, that O-line is going to be thriller right there. That Florida State defensive line is in big trouble on Saturday.
All right. I think, for most non-Alabama fans, national fans looking in at this game, Alabama, Florida State, I think most national college football fans, people in the chat here at the Voice of College Football, here on CFB Late Night Live, The main question is, why did Kalen DeBoer's year with Jalen Milroe just not pan out? Was it the coach insisting on a certain way of playing? Was it Milroe not being as coachable? And, how does that translate to what we're likely to see with Ty Simpson and the Alabama quarterback room this year? Do you see some clear-cut differences, and do you see real reason for improvement at the quarterback position in Tuscaloosa?
There's going to be humongous improvement throughout 2025 because, like last season, Jalen Milroe basically had to only rely on Ryan Williams. And, the offensive line, there are just injuries all over the place throughout the team. And, the fact is, we let that Georgia game go to our heads against Vanderbilt. And when we didn't run for 125 rushing yards or more, that's where we were losing or where we got lucky. Example, we got lucky against South Carolina, lost to Vandy, lost to Tennessee, lost to Michigan, the ReliaQuest Bowl, lost to Oklahoma. Why? We didn't utilize our running game. Games where we utilize our rushing game. LSU, Missouri. Saw that worked out. LSU was just smacked off the face of the earth in their own backyard on ABC Saturday night because of Alabama's rushing game.
How big a deal is it? And when you talk, you host an Alabama show, so you talk to coaches, you talk to experts. And of course, obviously, when you're not live on the air here at the Voice of College Football, you're talking to other Alabama fans in your family and your neighborhood, your community. What do they all think about Ryan Grubb? How big a deal is it that DeBoer now has his wingman back? He and Grubb coached Michael Penix and Washington to the national championship game. How big a deal is it for Alabama fans that Grubb is now back with Kalen DeBoer? What's your sense of how Tide fans are processing all of this heading into the season opener?
Well, me personally, I think it's third time as a charm. We finally got Grubb in Tuscaloosa for good because, the first time we tried getting him over to leave Washington, but he's like, nope, I'm running it back for the 2023 season. We thought he was going to come with us for 2024. He was coming with us for a little bit, but then the Seattle Seahawks came calling. But then 2024 didn't work out for Ryan Grubb at the Seahawks, so he came back to Tuscaloosa to go work with Kalen DeBoer. Basically, your dynamic duo of Batman and Robin, so to speak. As for the fans and the family members, you can tell who's a humongous football fan and who's not, because some of them, they're kind of overly worried about how this is going to work out. But if they've watched how the dynamic duo worked out at Fresno State, how the dynamic duo worked well together at Washington, they will know that there is nothing to worry about when you have Kalen DeBoer and Ryan Grubb working together as head coach and offensive coordinator. And I'm going to tell you right now, there's going to be a lot of teams calling for Ryan Grubb in the offseason.
Alabama definitely hopes to eat with Grubb as its offensive coordinator. All right, another really big storyline entering not the season, but this specific game against Florida State. Thomas Castellanos, the trash talker, talking a very, very, very big game about, how Florida State's going to win and how his Florida State defense in practice is going to be the best defense he's seen all year. Thomas Castellanos of FSU, he's just been cranking out the bulletin board material for Alabama. Are Alabama coaches and players noting that? Are they just being quiet and just kind of saving it for game day? Are Alabama fans up in arms, or are they just having a good chuckle oh, bold strategy, Cotton. Let's see how that works out for you. Talk about this, how the coaches and players are dealing with this, and how Alabama fans are dealing with this.
Some of the fans are up in arms over it, but most of the fan base, they're just having a laugh. And the coaches, they are planning for Castellanos. They're like, oh, you bold talker, huh? Well, we've got some plans for that, good buddy.
So, your prediction for this game. How big a Bama beatdown is this going to be?
Well, I think it's not going to be quite as big of a beatdown, but it will be like a beatdown in the second half because you're going to be seeing Alabama win 35-17 on Saturday on ABC, 3:30 p.m. Eastern Time. 1:30 p.m. Mountain Time, 12:30 p.m. Pacific Time, 2:30 p.m. Central Time.
And like beyond a win, just what do you think, in terms of like an Alabama fans checklist, like what are the things you really have to see? You obviously would like to see a complete, total domination, but like if you had to pick like 2 or 3 items on your checklist and put them at the top of your priority system, what would they be?
Well, for this season, obviously, we want to make sure we're beating Florida State. We want to make sure we get back to the playoffs, like at least go to the semifinals. We're not going to automatically expect a natty or anything. That would be nice to get a national championship, but we would love for Alabama to get to at least the semifinals because that way we know we're going to be okay. We're going to be okay.
All right, Jackson, tell the folks what you have going on your Alabama channel here at the Voice of College Football, what you've been talking about, and what people can expect on your most recent shows that you can share with all the fans listening on College Football Late Night Live.
Well, I can tell you this, like Monday nights on 6 p.m. Central Time, 7 p.m. Eastern Time, Jeffrey Only Talk Sports, Coach Spick, and myself start on Crimson Tide Live, going over our takes on the latest news and notes on the Crimson Tide. And plus, Coach Smook and I have been on Tuesday nights, 7 p.m. Eastern Time for the Primetime Live show. And Thursday nights, Jeffrey and I take your calls, 10 p.m. Eastern Time, discussing the Alabama Crimson Tide and other events in the world of college football. And Saturday night, just a little bit before Florida State, Alabama ends, we'll be going over our post-game reaction live, all right there on Alabama with the Voice of College Football. But, Matt, I've also got something really exciting to share for the Voice of College Football Network. Would you like to hear it?
Absolutely.
Well, we've got pick'em groups for the hosts, subscribers, everyone. All of you are invited to come on in and discuss your takes, your picks, all of them. All right here on the Voice of College Football. We've got the standard pits. We've got the confidence pits. Each of them have the 10 best games of the week. And I can tell you right now, you've got a fun ride ahead of you, and it's going to be wild.
All right, and so Jackson has shared the link to this pick'em group in the chat.
Go. Got the standard and the confidence pit. There we go. Getting ready to rock and roll this 2025 season. It's going to be a good one. And that merch store, I can tell you right now, it's a wild one. I told the whole hotel clerks, I told the ladies that if there's some stuff you don't like, I guarantee you the Voice of College Football hats are very stylish. They are very, in fact, they are up to date with fashion trends. That I can guarantee you right there. And if you don't like some of the stuff that's there, if there's something missing, like say, Voice of College Football nail polish, well, we'll make sure that we'll let Mark Rogers know at MarkRogersTV or voicecollegefootball@gmail.com, or, add some like doll balls or, Christmas ornaments, something like that. We're going to start with Iron Top before Walmart gets to it.
Just, submit a request. The worst that can happen is that we say no, but you can at least submit a request. If you see something, missing that you'd like to have, you can at least submit a request and we'll see what we can do. Jackson, anything else you'd like to add here on CFB Late Night Live?
Oh, man, tell your friends, your family, and the cashiers at Publix about the magic that all of us will bring to you all right here at the Voice of College Football. Plus, don't forget to tell everybody about the magic Matt Zimmett brings on USC Primetime Live with Ethan Inman Tuesday nights at 10 p.m. Eastern Time, 7 p.m. Pacific Time, 9 p.m. Central Time, 8 p.m. Mountain Time, and USC Postgame Live, and, of course, on Trojans Wire. I mean, that man right next to me, he brings magic all over the place. You're going to love what he has to say in the sports world, the political world, all of it on @Matt Zimmett on @/Twitter. Tune in. You won't want to miss it.
Jackson, thanks so much, and thanks for everything that you do here at the Voice of College Football. Best of luck to your Tide on Saturday against Florida State.
Say, man, and best of luck to USC for 2025. I really hope that SEC non-conference game schedule does not destroy Notre Dame USC. I don't want it to. I want it to stay on forever and ever.
Amen. All right, Jackson, have yourself a good night.
Too, man.
All right, thank you. And now we turn to Sean Garner. Sean, thanks for calling in to CFB Late Night Live.
Hey, Matt, how's it doing?
All right, what do you have for us?
Good. Don't know if I've ever been on the line with you before, but good to make your acquaintance.
It's 2:48 where AM where Mark is, so he needs some sleep, so I'm carrying it for the final leg.
It's 2:48 where I am as well, so.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. All right. Listening for the last 90 minutes or so to these conversations, and there's a lot of doom and gloom over a lot of the Big Ten performances tonight, and I feel like most of it's pretty premature, unwarranted, for a couple different reasons. One, it's week one. It's a good week for an underdog to be playing anybody because rust is going to favor the inferior team, I feel. And another one, these weren't bad football teams we saw tonight. We saw Big Ten teams play probably the three best MAC teams tonight. Ohio, Miami, Buffalo, those have all been very strong MAC programs the past few years.
Yeah, Ohio and Miami played in the MAC title game last season. Yep.
Yeah. And Buffalo was almost there. So I mean, I feel like a lot of fans, they view sort of this group of teams that they don't follow, they don't know, and they're just all they lump them all in the same. Struggling with Miami is not the same as struggling against Akron. It's just not.
Yeah.
Not even. So I don't know. I mean, it's hard to tell. I mean, you look back through any years, you see some very odd results in week one and week two. I'm not saying that there's not reason for concern at Rutgers, Minnesota, Nebraska, Wisconsin, but the sky's not falling in those places.
Sean, let me ask you something, and people in the chat can also think about this one. If Wisconsin had won, let's say 30-13 instead of 17-0, same 17-point spread, same margin of victory, but the offense does a little bit more, defense does a little bit less, so it feels a little bit more balanced instead of it being all on one side of the ball. Do you think the conversation's different?
Yeah, I absolutely think so. I think that's true. And Wisconsin lost their starting quarterback early in the game too. So
Yep, midway through. Yep.
There's another caveat, to their performance. But all right, so off from the games tonight. This weekend, I feel like we've got one of the weirdest big matchup showdowns. I'm a Buckeye fan, by the way. Still celebrating the national title. And we've got a 1 versus 2/3 game here where these two schools both had the most draft picks. They were 1 and 2 in draft picks in the previous draft. I feel like Texas might be one of the softest number ones preseason. They might be the softest preseason number one I've ever seen in my 30 years of watching college football. Yeah, it feels like, I don't know, the teams that conventionally you would put at the top, the teams that have the most returning talent. The quarterback coming back. We don't trust Penn State or Clemson, those kind of teams. So almost by default, we're putting these two teams up there because we just believe and their talent and the coaching staff. Does that seem right to you?
That seems like a reasonable thesis. I think one of the things that, hearing you speak, one of the thoughts that creates for me is, in week one games in particular, there are often games that are lost by the losing team more than they are won by the winning team. It's often more about one team stepping in a pothole than the other team being brilliant, because in week one you're going to have rough edges, and it's really the team that minimizes the dramatic, severe mistakes in terms of their significance, high leverage, but also their quantity. So week one often comes down to damage control. Like the Notre Dame Miami game feels like a damage control game. That feels like a game where the team that makes fewer mistakes, not so much the team that makes more big plays, is going to win. And not all big games, not all games, period, are the same in that regard. Some games are more about making big plays. Like you think about a Lincoln Riley Oklahoma team going up against an elite Mike Gundy Oklahoma State offense, Bedlam, or Lincoln Riley's Oklahoma versus Cliff Kingsbury and Texas Tech. That was about first one to 55 wins. That's about making plays. But then like Texas Ohio State probably is going to be a game in which mistake avoidance rather than making spectacular show-stopping plays is going to be what's deciding it. One really good point you made is, these rosters are dramatically different with all the lost talent to the NFL. It's not as though a new roster is just all going to snap into place in week one. There are going to be some rough edges. There are going to be some transitions, communication, just having continuity. It's one thing to do it on the practice field. It's another to do it in live action, Fox Big Noon Saturday, in front of, nearly 100,000 people in the shoe. So I think, what you're saying makes me think that this is going to be a game where it might be lost more than it's won. And so, is Texas going to be tough enough to go into Columbus and not make significant mistakes, especially if the Buckeyes do punch them in the mouth? It's a really interesting point.
Yeah, and I mean, the mindset for both of these teams, especially early in the year when there's so much turnover, there's so much, so much novel to both of these teams. You can imagine if they're thinking that way, like, can't mess up. The team that messes up the least is the one that's going to win. That would sort of engender, maybe an excessive amount of caution, from these staffs. You might be a little bit tight in both teams because, you got a lot of new players making their, that haven't, are playing bigger roles than they have in the past. And I think one thing that gives Texas a big edge in this game, they return their play callers. Ohio State is going to have play callers on both sides of the ball that have never called a play in a college football game ever. And that's that's an interesting aspect to this game as well. And I also feel like the winner of this game, it'll mean a lot, down the road, as far as when you seed and rank and sort these teams out. But I have a feeling if these two teams meet in the playoffs, I'm not going to consider the outcome of this game much at all. Like I don't feel like it's a game from a different season when that happens.
Just that last thing you said is a salient point, because the way Ohio State played in the regular season last year and the way it played in the playoff, those were basically two different seasons. You saw the very best of the Buckeyes once the playoff began, but like they just had to get in. You hear that a lot, kind of like with baseball and the wild card. Just get in, and then you can get on a run in October. In college football, now that we have this expanded playoff, it's just get in, and then you can get on a run in December, heading into January. If you're the hot team at the right time, that's enough. So, you don't have to kill it in the regular season. Oregon went 13-0, that didn't do the Ducks a whole lot of good when they got to the playoff. Ohio State was able to get in with 10-2, and then was able to save its best football for those postseason games. So you do make a great point about, having a certain degree of perspective about this game. In the 4-team playoff era, man, this game would have had so much more significance, do or die significance. But in the 12-team playoff era, the outlook is different, and people do need to adjust to that.
Yeah, and if we were in the BCS era, this game would almost feel like an elimination game.
Yes.
In the 4-team playoff era, this would be a huge game, but this would not be a fatal blow to either team. You could definitely lose a game like this and still get in. In the 12-team, I mean, like Will was saying earlier, and he may be a little bit flippant about, the ease with which both teams are going to run through their schedule, but it does sort of feel more like a big, a big non-conference basketball game. Duke playing Kansas or something in November. Like, it has more closer to that feel than it would have been in years past. Like when Ohio State played Texas in 2005 and 2006. The loser was basically out of the national title race those times. So, interesting landscape we live in now. I prefer it under this model. I don't think you really get the best team if you can't allow for some margin of error. But like that. Interesting. Some things I was thinking about with the Clemson LSU game here. This game seemed, and while we're talking about like the new stakes in college football, this game feels so much bigger for LSU than for Clemson at this point, because Clemson's path to getting in the playoffs is basically unobstructed, unaffected, win or lose. I mean, not unaffected, because obviously a win over a quality win would help if they're unable to win the ACC, but that's basically their path to the playoffs anyway. And LSU, I mean, they can help themselves in a big way, and they can actually, they can put themselves with a non-conference loss heading into SEC schedule. It's a different dynamic. I mean, it seems like such a bigger game for LSU in this.
And if Brian Kelly loses this game, the pitchforks are going to be out in Baton Rouge.
Oh yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Because you don't come to LSU to go 8-4, 9-3, and miss a 12-team playoff. That's just not acceptable.
Absolutely. So, Matt, I'm curious. I didn't even see, who does USC have this weekend?
Missouri State, which, by the way, some people will say, oh, USC is actually playing an FCS team. No, Missouri State is joining Conference USA. So, hey, it is a cupcake game, but it is an FBS game, in case anyone was wondering about that.
Okay. All right. So I'm just curious, you've watched this for a while, I'm guessing. You've watched as a fan of a team, when you watch these games where the outcome is almost predetermined, paid for, do you take anything away from watching these games? Like, do you feel like you can get much of a gauge on the team in these games?
Well, in terms of like the finality of a statement or a piece of analysis from this game, or in terms of like how certain you are about what the team is going to look like going down the road, no. But you do gather information from a game that several weeks later in the season you can use as a reference point to say, all right, did the coaching staff properly learn from this game? Did the coaching staff gain the right information to make the appropriate evaluations? Because one of the things that USC has struggled with the past few seasons was, which guys to plug in on the offensive line, which guys to give more reps to. Like 2 years ago, there was a problem at linebacker. It was felt that the right linebackers weren't getting enough reps, or at least the guys who were showing signs of progress, they weren't getting as many reps in those early season games against cupcake opponents, and that manifested later in the season. Just some guys were underplayed and the unit wasn't progressing as well, and it was a sense that the coaches weren't handling as well. So, it's less about making kind of the final definitive verdict. It's more about, okay, as is this game setting things up for the start of conference play and for managing a team through the entirety of the season. That's kind of how I approach early season cupcake games at USC.
Okay, so that's interesting, but you don't have much of a judgment really coming out of these.
Not
games.
really.
I mean,
Yeah, there's only so much you can say about beating Missouri State by 30. Like if you won by 40, if you won by 20, like, does that swing your view? Not really, because everyone knows it's kind of a glorified scrimmage. So for USC, Missouri State week 1, Georgia Southern week 2, the road trip to Purdue in week 3. That's when we begin to kind of get a better, deeper, more fully developed sense of what this team is and what this team could be, for better or worse.
Oh, okay, I gotcha. Yeah. One last thing, topic I really wanted to get your perspective on before I move off. How do you feel about this big noon? I mean, I'm sure you follow the involving Big Noon this entire
Big Noon.
season.
So, I mean, television calls the shots, right? And the Big Ten television money, the Big Ten television contract, with 18 teams, with the West Coast imports. I mean, we know that, if schools are going to rake in the dollars, then they need to be willing to play when television says so. And just from Fox's point of view, Big Noon has done really, really well for them. I understand the business side. I understand the economics. In terms of my own view of college football start times and how the sport is presented on television, go ahead.
Well,
Were you about to say something?
Really, really quick before I lost this thought, because it's an interesting. I think this is kind of an interesting one. Like, are they doing well because it's Big Noon, or because they're showing good, or they have really good football games?
Well, they put the best games at Big Noon. So it's a marriage.
Yeah, I mean, are we pulling in these huge numbers because we have it on at 12 o'clock, or is it because we have Ohio State playing, we have Michigan playing, we have Texas, Oklahoma? Why? I mean, could there be a to me, it makes a lot more sense that a lot more people would be watching at 7:30, 8 o'clock at night than are watching at noon. I would absolutely think.
Yep. I mean, that's an entirely fair point. I think the argument that Fox executives would make, not to say that, what Fox executives say should be treated as gospel or the quote unquote correct view, but just, to have our standalone game in that noon window up against, a third tier Big 12 ACC game, like that, we can own that window. I'm sure that's what Fox executives are thinking. Whereas, you're going to have the Fowler Herb Street ESPN ABC game in that 7:30, 8 o'clock primetime window, and why go head to head against it when you can just be on an island yourself? I'm sure that's part of Fox's thought process. So that's probably what Fox's viewpoint is. And just from an Ohio State vantage point, because I know this is a sore subject for Ohio State fans, mix it up, right? Mix it up during the season. Don't have Ohio State playing each of its premium games all in the noon window. That is definitely overkill. You should certainly be able to find a way to spread things around so that, 3 home dates are not nooners where you don't get the full tailgating experience. I think that's a legitimate grievance. So I would say it's overdone. Big Noon is overdone, but I'm also going to say, I love having a big, juicy, delicious feature game in that noon window because because you are spreading things around in each window. Like, I don't want to have to choose from 4 or 5 elite games all scrunched, packed into the primetime window. And this gets me to the point that I wanted to make about college football programming and scheduling. It's conspicuous to me. It's been conspicuous to me for a long time that the sport just has these preset windows at noon, at 3:30, at 7:30 or 8, and then at 10:30, 11 o'clock. Why not have a 1:30 Eastern window? Why not have a 5 p.m. Eastern window? So, like, imagine a Saturday in which ESPN, and it could be Fox, it just doesn't really matter. One network has the noon 3:37, but the other network has 1:30, 5, and 8:30 or 9. That way, you're having all these big games, and you're guaranteed a 90-minute stagger between these games. So you watch one second half, you watch the end of one game, and you can go to the third quarter of another game instead of having several games all starting pretty much at the same time, especially in that primetime window, and they're all basically starting and ending at the same time. It's just always been weird to me. And I also apply this to the NFL. Like, why doesn't the NFL have the 1 p.m. window, but then have like its Midwest games in the Central time zone start at like 2:30 or 3 Eastern, and then at 5 you play your West Coast games. You know, people would be able to see more games. Like, if you're the NFL, why are you having all 8 games in that 1 p.m. window? Obviously, you know, people love red zone, but like, there are 5 games ending right at the same time. Why don't you space them out at least by like an hour or so I can watch the fourth quarter of Vikings-Lions here, but then I can watch the fourth quarter of Packers-Bears here instead of having them both end right at the same time? It's really a similar thing with college football. So, you know, I wonder, Sean, let me now ask you, like, if I'm not saying this is likely, all right, but I'm just inviting you to play along with the hypothetical. If an Ohio State game, instead of being big noon, was, let's say, a 1:30 or 2 o'clock game, you know, not a traditional start time, but like in a world where games were staggered by like 90 minutes throughout the day. If a game was at 2, let's say 2 o'clock instead of noon, how much would that 2-hour difference mean to you and other Ohio State fans?
Okay, well, I don't think it would get at the main core of Buckeye fandom's discontent, which is we don't get that big nighttime primetime atmosphere.
You want the night, sure.
Even if you start at 2. From a college football junkies perspective, I love, and I have presented versions of this idea, that same idea you just proposed, to many people. One of the most annoying things I experience watching college football, it goes to halftime. Every single game that I care about is at halftime. If I'm watching, and because, you know, most games follow a certain rhythm, when one game goes to commercial, the other 4 games I care about, 3 or maybe all 4 of them are also on commercial. I mean, it gets to be a little obnoxious. I mean, like, you know what, I want to just be able to watch, to consume a voracious, gluttonous amount of college football in a day. And I don't really like the downtime. I don't care about the halftime shows. Just give me more football. And I would say, hey, you know what, CBS, I can't. I'm not going to be able to watch any of your games at all. Like, you know, you're my second option, but every time there's a break in my action, there's a break in your action too. So you're just going to lose my attention. You're going to lose whatever I can offer you. You're just not going to get it. So, I mean, yeah, from a business standpoint, I always thought that the way they schedule the programming didn't make a lot of sense. One thing I will say about the big noon thing, one point you made earlier about Fox News carving out that window, I think that makes all the sense in the world, when you are trying to elbow your way into what was fairly monopolistic programming at the time. Like, okay, we're the new kids on the block. You know, how long has Fox really programmed college football? About like 12 years or something like that. You know, if you're trying to like build a little bit of brand equity for yourself initially, I completely understand that. And it did challenge some norms, but now, I mean, you're not the startup anymore. You're Microsoft. You know, you're McDonald's in this space. I mean, you start acting like it.
Really good point, Sean. And it's very convincing.
All right, excellent conversation, Matt. Hope to talk to you more in the next few months.
Okay, good luck to your Buckeyes on Saturday.
OH.
All right, we continue on CFB Late Night Live here at the Voice of College Football. A very familiar face, Tim Prangley of the LA Football Network. Tim, how are you doing?
Uh-oh. Hang on, Matt. I'm not sure if you got me.
I have you. You're on.
Okay, I got you back now. Hey, how's it going?
All right, how are you doing?
Mr. Zemek, good to see you. Now, so it's safe, right? It's like after 9 p.m., so the children are all,
it's after midnight.
so it's safe. It's safe for me to be, go crazy, unhinged on stuff.
Sure.
Wait,
sure.
my question. So I want to hear from you on this one. What's more likely? I've switched it up a little bit. What's more likely? USC goes 10-2 and makes the playoffs, or they continue this 6-6, 7-5 kind of run? Because everyone's playing it safe at 8-4. I think it's a really easy, safe number. 9-3, maybe even. But what are the odds? What are the odds USC has a couple of games bounce their way? They go 10-2 and make their playoffs. Is it more likely 10-2, or is it more likely to say 6-6?
I would lean 10-2. I have USC going 9-3. I think the schedule is pretty manageable, and you probably caught Nebraska tonight. And not to say that how a team looks in week 1 is how a team's going to look in early November, but if I'm just looking at this from a USC perspective, I'm saying, Dylan Raiola is still a work in progress. Like, it's not all clicking, it's not all coming together. Yeah. Trojans should be able to go to Lincoln with a Danton Lynn defense and beat the Huskers in early November. And if they do, that's one of their tougher road games. They win that one. They win the Illinois road game, and 9-3 with a chance for 10-2 is right there. It's right in front of them. And it all goes back, and you're not going to be surprised by this. It's all about the offensive line. Can Zach Hansen raise the bar in a way that Josh Henson did not? If Zach Hansen is the real deal as offensive line coach, and USC has a real keeper at that position, especially now that Benny Wiley's gone and you have Trumaine Carroll, who, coached Carroll at USC, like that just fits like a glove. But like, he also seems to be, on the right track in terms of developing these guys. If Zach Hansen is the truth as offensive line coach, it can all come together for USC, and they can go 10-2.
Yeah, Coach True is a good conversationalist. I'll tell you that. He says all the right things. I don't know how much he's, obviously physically he's not preparing them too much. He's got there too late, really, to make a huge imprint. But I'm with you. The rumors were that your favorite guy, Coach Wiley, was letting guys skip reps, get there late, do all the, which I heard the opposite originally from John Jackson III, but it started seeping out that there was a little bit of star power could get you a little bit late to practice like that. And that, I think it was Bowden that kind of put a stop to all that, said, this isn't what a championship team does.
And you and I talked quite a lot about how the coaching staff was playing favorites, and that was one of the problems with Grinch. That was one of the problems with Odom as well. Like, these guys are all about The competition, the process, the results.
Yeah, that's how Grinch lost that. I mean, whatever you felt about Grinch, when he went up for the team huddle and everyone just backed away, walked off with just leaving him there with his hand in the air. I mean, that really said it all, didn't it, Matt? It was just, you really lost the locker room. And it was Gabe saying it, and I agree with him. The only way SC goes 6-6 this year is kind of what you hit on: catastrophic injuries. Well, not even catastrophic, 2 or 3 injuries to that offensive line. They're only probably 7, maybe 8 deep on that offensive line, maybe. And I'd say 3 or 4 big maybes because they're unproven. But big injuries are the only way this, because you look at the schedule, and like you said, I lost my ass. I used to be able to bet the Pac-12. This Big Ten stuff, if I see double digits from now on, I'm shying away from the Big Ten, because I mean, none of it made sense. We could talk about how great these teams are, but the teams they played were pretty bad. And if you're talking middle of the road SEC teams, and even some ACC teams would have waxed the floor with those teams. They would have. And so when you see the Big Ten teams struggling like that, it did make me think. But USC's not playing Murderers Row this year. I mean, they're really not. And
no Ohio State, no Penn State. Like you're dodging probably the top 2 teams in the conference, and also Indiana.
And then you have Michigan at home. You got Iowa at home. I mean, if you're Kinnick, maybe, but Iowa at home, I'm not worried about that game. I'm really not. I shouldn't be. Michigan at home, I'm not that worried about that game either. Michigan fans out there, I mean, we could have a conversation. That'll be fun because we'll be able to see it after SC goes to Illinois. We'll know what this team. We really won't know much until Illinois. But
Illinois is going to be the revealer.
We'll know. We got Michigan. We have a bye. Michigan, I don't think they do. They're traveling. Michigan traveling to the West is never a good thing for the Wolverines. So that one, just having 2 games in 2 places where we haven't won since 2011 is probably going to be an issue. But I was worried about that Husker game. I'm going to that game just to go to Memorial Stadium. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, unless Dylan Raiola all of a sudden figures it all out, that looks like it's going to be, instead of looking like Patrick Mahomes, if he starts playing like Patrick Mahomes, that might help. But other than that, yeah. So what do you think of Matt Rule in year 3? Do you think he's going to turn this thing around?
Well, I mean, if tonight was a basis for judgment, probably not. Like it seems like it's a slow crawl rather than a steady upward rise. I mean, he has to find a way to get more out of Dylan Raiola than he is. And you know, there were conversations earlier tonight. I don't know if you were on here during them, but you know, Dylan Raiola seems to be embracing the Patrick Mahomes comparisons before he's established a standard that's anywhere close to Mahomes. He needs to just focus not on the media chatter. He needs to focus on his game, because his game is not there. And he needs to get there in order for Nebraska to get anywhere close to where it wants to go.
Yeah, it makes you wonder. I mean, I've always been high on Lincoln Riley and be able to pick that right quarterback. But not only was he not able to land some of these guys, but he really, I think he may have really whiffed on Raiola. I think he really would have, I think he might have burned some serious traction by going there and not grabbing somebody else. It just kills me to see Lagway playing at Florida. Can you imagine, Matt? Can you imagine Lagway and Lincoln Riley's offense? I mean,
that'd be very tantalizing.
I'm sorry, George, we're not poaching him.
Yeah, that would be something to think about. And it's also fascinating to see Julian Lewis not get QB1 at Colorado.
It is and it isn't, because he's young, and he's mentally young. Like when I went to Elite 11, I think I told you the story, didn't I? Where how he was just off by himself, and the guys had to beg him to come over as the end of the Elite 11, and they'd already decided who won. It was almost like he was pouting. He was putting his shoes away and getting his street clothes on, and it's like they literally had to like cajole him to come over and join the team for a team photo. And I was like, oh, that's weird. You know, literally the only one. They're all out there celebrating, having a good time together, and he's off by himself. But I mean, a part of that I think was the maturity. I mean, at that point, he probably would have been, you know, just barely a little over 17. You know, the other guys are all, you know, quarterbacks are always held back, so they're all 18, 19-year-old guys out there, and he's like the youngest one. I think he's going to take. I think he'll be all right. He's going to be a good quarterback. Just will he still be at Colorado when he gets that seasoning in? That's the question.
Yes, but it's really fascinating, isn't it, Tim, that the players who've decommitted from USC or who transferred out of USC, thinking that maybe elsewhere they would be the star in the room, didn't really pan out that way. You know, Malachi Nelson, another example, and we saw Maddox Madsen, you know, without Ashton Genty tonight, struggle big time for Boise State, and Malachi Nelson could not beat him out last season. Malachi Nelson now at UTEP. I'm sure that's not the career path that Malachi Nelson had, but just to reinforce the basic point, guys transfer from USC or decommit from USC, and Lincoln Riley thinking they can be the man elsewhere, and it's not panning out for them when they leave USC.
Poor Quentin Joyner. I mean, I thought he was doing really well.
That's unfortunate.
You know, blowing his knee out. He was going to get his opportunities. That kid is really talented. But yeah, that's unfortunate. Speaking of kids, though, what do you think about the news about Tanook Hines coming out of nowhere? Because I mean, I've been at practice and Tanooks look good, but I mean, they don't let us see much of anything anyway. Most of the team stuff's like behind the veil. But Tanook Hines being the named the third starter when everyone thinking it's gonna be Prince Strawn, you know, over there for sure. I would guarantee. Early on was all about Prince Strawn. He's gonna be the guy, you know. And then, Zacharias Williams, you know, from Utah, and now out of the blue, it turns out to be true freshman Tanook Hines. And I don't know if you remember this, but his uncle or dad, when we did the call-in show, would actually call in. So, which is weird. So, hey, just wait till he gets there. And we're like, yeah, okay, freshman. What's he going to do? Now he's starting game one.
Yeah, well, you know as well as I do that, Jacoby Lane getting hurt in May, that was kind of a revelation that was kept really quiet until recently. And I think that, I think Jacoby Lane, they're kind of trying, soft pedal him, I would think, against Missouri State and really make this game an audition for that third receiver position. So, and I think it's a way of saying, you thought the established hierarchy for that third receiver was clear? No, we're going to shake it up. Like, guys are going to need to earn positions. It's not going to be handed to them. That's kind of a continuation of a theme. Like, we're not presuming incumbency or that there's an established pecking order. No, we're going to keep you on your toes. I kind of like that. I think that's the right way. Like, it flows from a Pete Carroll philosophy, right? Always compete, nothing given. You're going to have to earn it. So I think the Jacoby Lane injury is part of the subtext. It's not the whole story, but it's part of the subtext for the third wide receiver position. And USC obviously needs to find that third option after Lemon and Lane.
They have Jacoby penciled in as the starter for Saturday. So
I just think he might be used as a decoy a little bit in this game.
He was running well. We were actually trying until they disclosed what it actually was. We were trying to figure out what he was doing. He was always off to the side, just had Gage Roy throwing the ball to him or whatever. And we're like, he looks fine. He's not limping. He's going over his head, so it's not his shoulder or a collarbone or something like that. We're like what the hell's his injury? Because all the way through spring, all the way through not through spring, sorry, all the way through fall, we didn't see him. And we're like, he doesn't appear to be injured, so it looks like I guess it's better to have a break back then than have some kind of soft tissue thing that might linger or be an issue. But all right, Matt, I saw you on. I had to jump on, say hello, and I had to get your prediction. Okay, last thing. So, how do you feel about the offensive line? This is something you and I have gone back on for like over 2 years now. How do you feel on a 1 to 5? I'm talking just the starters only. I'm not talking about the depth, because the depth gets dodgy quick. But you're 1 through 5, and the fact that Keelan O'Connor got the nod over Big General Reed. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I'm going to say 3. And, if DJ Wingfield had been given eligibility, which, what an absolute injustice and outrage that is. It depends on your state. It depends on the judge in the courtroom. Absolutely bogus. But, with Wingfield, I would have weighed in at a 4. But without Wingfield, it's a 3. I'm not sold on Alani Noah. And just the fact that they're juggling centers. I mean, O'Connor the starter, but They want Reed to get some reps. Boy, at the nerve center traffic cop position, and you're not, just fully going with one guy. Like, that's what's preventing me from saying USC will go 10-2. I think there's just enough instability on the offensive line that I can't really get to 10-2. I'm landing at 9-3, and that's primarily because of the offensive line. But hey, Zach Hansen has a chance to prove me wrong, and I'm not thinking Zach Hansen's going to fail. I'm just like, we don't know it. He had a little bit of time at Tulsa in the past as an offensive line coach, but Tulsa's not USC, and we just got to see it. I was. I was pretty anti Josh Henson pretty early, pretty consistently. I'm not anti Zach Hansen, but it's an open-ended thing. We need to see it before we say, all right, USC's really turned the corner with its offensive line, and it's ready to go back to student body right 1979 and be a skull crusher again.
Yeah, I'd like you to talk about Hudson Houck. He's
got
to prove he's at Hudson Houck, but Hansen, we know he can recruit. That's the one thing we do know. That guy can recruit. Between the tight end room and then what he's been doing on the offensive line with those tackles he's been bringing in, I feel really good about that. But yeah, we're going to see if it translates to the field. I mean, I feel really good about that left side. I think the left side of that line. I think if USC needs 2 yards, I don't think Huff's going to come up and stuff Lendale White with that left side. I think that left side's pretty solid. Elijah Page's evolution is the best reason for optimism regarding the USC offensive line, no question. Well, and they are more than talking, especially the coaches, about Tobias Raymond. Just saying he's an absolute technician.
I like him too.
He put on good weight, and the thing about Lonnie Noah is that Washington game. You hate to blame anything on that kid, but that missed blocking assignment where he doubled that guy and let the linebacker who had 1,000 tackles in that game just shoot that gap to end that game. Really, Lonnie did that a lot, but he's been struggling with things off the field. He lost both of his parents and stuff like that. So, but yeah, he came to camp in the best shape he's ever been in. He's really shed all that baby fat and that just bad fat. So, that doesn't make you you're clean with your assignments and your handoffs, but it does show that he's got his head in it and that he's matured physically. I've never been worried about him physically. It's been always more about a mental, if he can actually get those assignments. And I think that's why Killian O'Connor, I do believe that why Killian O'Connor is starting at center in these earlier games, because I know he'll get the line calls right. I'm wondering if they want to make sure that happens. And if you do have that they're getting the line calls right, then who's screwing up, amongst the guards and maybe right tackle. If Justin Tuanu, if they're doing what they're supposed to do, who's coming hot, who's anyway. So that way, if you have a veteran guy at center who knows the offense, it kind of takes that wild card up, because between the two, O'Connor's a guy mentally, but physically, I was excited about the size of the line if Reed was starting at center. That would have been special. All right, Matt. I don't know if you're going to sleep, but I'll keep watching. I always watch. I'm always lurking.
Well, I think you're the last caller. So, Tim, let me invite you to say what you have going on at LA Football Network, what you're doing, and anything you'd like to promote.
Oh yeah. Well, I'm doing, as you know, I'm doing galleries for them. So I'm basically the site photographer, and then we're also doing the call-in show every Wednesday, and then we're gonna do like a post-game show and the wrap-up sometime during the week. So we haven't figured that part out yet, but a lot going on. It's football season, right, Matt? So this should be a fun one for Trojans. I think there's a lot of hand-wringing out there thinking that Lincoln Riley's on the hot seat. Maybe. I think the only way that happens, again, some injuries, and then he loses the locker room, because I can't look at that schedule and see a football reason why they're going to drop 6 games. I can see them losing 4, but you're pushing it with 5, 6 this year. I really do. I think the big problem last year was defensive interior, and they've more than fixed that problem, I think.
They have. It's definitely better.
All right, thanks,
All right,
Matt.
Tim. Good to talk to you and catch up with you, and best of luck at LA Football Network.
Thank you, Matt.
All right. That's Tim Prangley. You know him. You knew him. here at the Voice of College Football, formerly on our USC show. All right, so any other last calls? We talked about Nebraska inching past Cincinnati. Not a very convincing display. It was a win, but again, you put 100 Nebraska fans in a room, I'd say at least 80, if not 90, would say, you know what, that's not the standard we're looking for. This thing needs to be a lot better, and we need to be convinced that Dana Holgorsen and Matt Rule can get Dylan Raiola to play elite football. That was not elite football tonight. It wasn't terrible, but it wasn't especially convincing. So Nebraska is part of a set of Big Ten teams whose offenses tonight just didn't really click. And you can say it's week one, and that is always a valid line of argument, but like there's definitely progress which needs to be made the next 2 to 3 weeks before Big Ten play gets going in mid to late September. Like Luke Fickell at Wisconsin, like that seems to be an uphill battle for Fickell, and like you don't get paid at Wisconsin to go 6-6. Not today. In the 1980s, early 1980s, 6-6 at Wisconsin, or 11 game schedule back then. So 6-5, that would have been just fine. That would have been really good actually. Before Barry Alvarez came along at the end of the 80s, the start of the 90s. But today in 2025, 6-6 at Wisconsin is a disaster. So Luke Fickell could find himself in the hot seat, and that could invite Pat Fitzgerald back into the Big Ten by way of Madison. Things could get really interesting. You heard Jackson Johnson, host of the Alabama show here at the Voice of College Football, saying that, all right, maybe the dominoes of the coaching carousel are going to be that, all right, Fickell out at Wisconsin, you got Fitz in Wisconsin, and you got Luke Fickell making the retreat to Cincinnati. UC would probably welcome back with open arms, given what he did for that program. Scott Satterfield exits, and his career's taken a significant, marked downward turn. So, coaching carousel is already spinning, at least in terms of what might happen. And we haven't even talked about Auburn versus Baylor tomorrow. Hugh Freeze, Dave Aranda, loser of that game, is going to be facing a lot of pitchforks from the local fan base. That game is at 8 Eastern, as is Georgia Tech at Colorado. Deion Sanders begins life without Shador and without Travis Hunter, now in the NFL. What does Colorado have for the follow-up to last season with Travis Hunter winning the Heisman Trophy? Georgia Tech trying to make a push to the top tier of the ACC. If you ask most people, Clemson's the favorite, but then who's going to play Clemson in the ACC championship game? Most people would probably say Miami, followed closely by SMU. Can Georgia Tech under Brent Key elbow its way into the conversation? So Georgia Tech, Colorado, Auburn, Baylor, both at 8 p.m. Eastern. One's on ESPN, one's on Fox. Those are the Friday night games, very intriguing. And then, of course, the full Saturday slate, headlined by Texas, Ohio State on Fox Big Noon, and then LSU and Clemson, the other really, really big game. Like Alabama, Florida State's a notch or two below LSU, Clemson. But LSU, Clemson, you have that one in prime time in Death Valley, but it's Clemson's Death Valley, not LSU's. The Tigers are guaranteed to win, but which one? And I think the general consensus is Brian Kelly needs this one more than Dabo Swinney. And, of course, lots of other really interesting games. And, of course, Mark Rogers here at the Voice of College Football will be talking about it Saturday, 10 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Pacific. I am on the USC show at the Voice of College Football, midweek show, Tuesdays, 10 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Pacific, with my co-host Ethan Inman. But starting for the season, this Sunday, we do a Sunday postgame. So not right after the game, but one day after our Sunday game review. We come at you at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. That's 5 p.m. In the West. We'll be on the air Sunday evening to discuss USC's Week 1 game, what we see from the Trojans. And you'll want to follow Ethan and myself at the USC channel all season long. All right, no more phone callers. We've taken this to 3:37 in the morning, the show lasting just over 3 hours, started by Mark Rogers. Folks, thanks for staying up late. I hope you enjoyed the coffee or the late night snack here at the Voice of College Football. Come back here tomorrow night to wrap up the Auburn, Baylor, and Georgia Tech, Colorado games. And then, of course, the first full Saturday of the new season, Saturday night, 10 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Pacific, with Mark Rogers here at the Voice of College Football. Check our website, vocfb.com, for stories. You have Jeffrey Clark writing about Notre Dame. You have Brandon Foster writing about Miami. And vocfb.com/shop. Get some merch. Get some caps with your favorite college football team. If you buy a VOCFB piece of merch with your school, that supports the channel. All right. If you're an Ohio State fan, you get an Ohio State VOCFB cap. That helps the Ohio State show at the Voice of College Football. Same for Michigan. Same for the other teams you come here to listen to here at the Voice of College Football. So for Mark Rogers and all our guests, all our callers, thank you so much. For all our Super Chat donors, thank you so much for your generosity and for your support. We'll see you on Friday, or more specifically, Mark will see you on Friday. Week 1's here. We waited a long time for it. Enjoy the season and enjoy the Labor Day weekend of football here at the Voice of College Football. See you Friday.